Hello, dear viewers. Support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it. And also, make sure you comment your thoughts. Now let's start the video.
Sorbet quickly summoned Shenron and waited gleefully as he shouted out his first wish, "Resurrect Lord Frieza." "I cannot do that," Shenron declared as his voice echoed throughout the wilderness. His body was completely destroyed, and his soul absorbed by a being more powerful than I. Sorbet looked like all of the blood had drained from his face. "Wait a minute," Sorbet began, thinking of everything he could to make the situation go his way. "Can I ask you to resurrect Frieza's soul in a completely new body made in the exact form as his old one?" Shenron's eyes glowed and said, "That will take 2 wishes. It is done." Somewhere deep in the core of Purgatory, Janembu lost a great deal of strength, as if something was stolen from his body. However, as he still had Frieza's old body along with all the other frost demons that were absorbed, he would quickly recover. Standing in front of Sorbet was a stunned Frieza. He looked around and quickly gained a hold on his situation. "I see you have finally gotten around to resurrecting me." Everyone sensed Frieza's power pouring out onto the surface of the earth. Sorbet quickly grabbed Frieza's hands and cried as he said, "I wish for Frieza to be immortal and never die." Before Sorbet could finish the sentence, Pilaf interrupted. Jumping out from the rock he was hiding behind, Pilaf shouted at the top of his lungs, "I wish for my allies Mai, Shu and myself to have indestructible bodies that have the appearance of youthful adults. In our mid-20s. The dragon nodded his head as he said, "Your wish has been granted." His eyes glowed red as their bodies returned to adults and their clothes as well. The clothes were a freebie, and with that said, Shenron blasted off. Frieza looked absolutely livid. His eyes went bloodshot before he blasted the trio into the distance with most of his power. Sorbet grabbed Frieza's arm and stopped him from continuing as he said, "There's no time, the Zip Fighters will be here soon." Sorbet hit a button on his ring and used a short-range teleporter to send them to another location. He then pulled out another ring and placed it on Frieza's finger. The silver band that had technological markings on it glowed before it covered up the frost demon's power level. As they blasted off into space, Sorbet finally breathed a sigh of relief. "The universe has changed, Lord Frieza. There are many strange beings that are just as strong as those Super Saiyans. Your entire army was almost wiped out, and we were forced into hiding. However, with the return of the founder of the Frost Demon Empire, things will be different." Sorbet went into a lengthy explanation of what happened after his death. The loss of their power when the Saiyans joined forces with the Galactic Patrol, the revival of all the PTO's worst enemies, the army going into hiding, and lastly the development of many technologies to stay hidden, such as the power sealing ring and the short-range teleporter. Frieza looked positively peeved. He wanted to kill all the cowards on the spot. However, he held his temper back when Sorbet mentioned a golden frost demon named Verglas. "The founder? How interesting. Maybe I'll have him work for my army." Frieza started to regain his confident attitude. Sorbet waved his hands. "My lord, you mustn't. Verglas is far stronger than you imagine. He has a form that turns his skin golden, and as he explained, all frost demons have this form." Frieza smiled. "Oh, a golden form, you say? I see. If those monkeys can do it, then why not me?" Sorbet shook. "My lord, not only has he made this his base form, he claims that he has 2 more that far surpass his previous forms." Frieza paused. Very well. I will train with that man until I steal all his secrets. However, once I surpass him, and I will surpass him, I'll offer him a choice. Join me or die." Sorbet smiled. "Thank you, my lord." As they flew back to spaceships and took off towards the Frost Demon homeworld, the Pilaf trio struggled to pull themselves out of the rubble with only dust covering their bodies. "Ugh, that hurt like hell," Pilaf screamed as he looked over their tattered clothing. "No injuries, though," Shu shouted happily. "Well, it looks like a bad guy got revived," Mai said as she looked at the PTO flagship exiting their atmosphere. The ship activated some kind of cloaking technology before blinking out of sight. The trio's bodies were covered in dust, their clothes were wrecked, and their hair was messed up. However, there wasn't a single cut or scratch on their bodies. Kami was far stronger than Frieza at the moment, so the blast could do nothing to them because the power of Shenron Wish was greater than Frieza's blast. "Ha ha ha! I told you I'm a genius," Pilaf proudly declared. "I knew there was no way we could survive an attack against that fellow, so I made our bodies are indestructible to survive their retaliation." Just as Pilaf was boasting, many of the Zai fighters came over to look for Frieza. Goten, Trunks, Tien, Piccolo, and even Kibo's kids, Genji and Rai. "Odd, where'd that sinister power go?" Goten questioned. "It should be around here somewhere," Ray said, scratching her head. Trunks looked over and saw the Pilaf crew. Sensing their familiar Keely, the lavender-haired Saiyan tilted his head before he said, "Hey, you're those kids that work for my mom. But how come you're adults now?" Pilaf smiled and rubbed his hands together. "Master Trunks, it's good to see you again. You see, there is a story behind why we are like this." Pilaf then went on a rant about how they were cursed by an evil witch that turned them into children, and then how they bravely saved the world from Frieza by stealing their wish and breaking their curse. Goten started tearing up as he wiped his tears and said, "You guys have had it rough." "You buy that?" Genji thought as he lifted a brow. Trunks looked over at Mai. She tilted her head sideways and avoided the adult Trunks' gaze. Because of the eternal youth effect, many warriors who trained in the timeless training grounds chose to use the hyperbolic time chamber to help them age up to their mental state. Trunks and Goten were no exception. Both of them were in 21 physically and only a few extra years mentally. Mai had a crush on him for the longest time and quickly wanted to regain her adult form. However, now that she couldn't show her face. Maybe you should wear this." Trunks pulled his jacket off and put it around Mai's chest. Her outfit was ripped and showing quite a bit of cleavage. Mai let out an embarrassed scream as she slapped Trunks across the face and started to cry out, "I can never get married now." Trunks fell over from taking the blow, surprised as Goten gave him a disapproving look and said, "Shame on you, Trunks. Mum says guys have to take responsibility for situations like this." Trunks stood up and with an embarrassed expression said, "Shut up. I don't think your mum was talking about this." Pilaf saw a chance to continue hugging the golden leg that is the Capsule Corporation and said, "No, you have to take Mai as your wife," all while secretly thinking, "This way we can be around the strongest guys in the universe and use their reputation to our advantage." Pilaf had given up on world domination. For one, it was because it wouldn't work on anyone stronger than Kami, so even if he did brainwash the whole world, those who could resist would rise up and crush him. Two, he would have to do so much work to do if he took over the planet. Living a relaxed life with Bulma's family and serving her sounded much better than having to rule over everyone. "Lord Pilaf!" Mai shouted loudly. She pulled out a gun and with a dark expression placed it in his ear before whispering, "Please shut up." Genji and Rei laughed and teased Trunks as well. Just then, the rest of the Zaid fighters showed up along with the people from the Narutoverse. While they knew Frieza had returned, they would have to wait for their parents to return and inform them. Besides, they weren't worried about Frieza, they could kill him with a flick. It took them a couple of days, but Vegeta, Goku, and Kibo managed to locate all of the Super Dragon Balls. Once they were done, they didn't even bother with using the rest of the time to train. They marched over to Earth and decided to spend their time relaxing until Whis and Beerus showed up. When they arrived back on Earth, Vegeta and Goku learned of Frieza's resurrection. Vegeta thought it was Fu again, while under that assumption, an entirely new faction had entered the scene that had nothing to do with the Demon King's plans. After a few days passed, the angel and his god finally showed up. Whis and Beerus had a quick meal before the angelic being summoned an object behind them and said, "It's time." The summoned object was a large glass and copper box. Vegeta knew that this was the device that could allow him to travel to another universe, the Chariot of the Gods. Looking a bit hesitant, Vegeta told Whis and Beerus of Frieza's resurrection. Everyone was surprised to see that Vegeta showed a sense of worry towards this old enemy. When asked about it, Vegeta responded with, "You can only think like that because all of you don't understand Frieza's true potential. Not once in his entire life has he ever trained. Yet even with that, he conquered most of the Eastern universe. If that shit stain ever learns to actually put in the effort to get stronger, then we could have some serious problems on our hands in the future. Vegeta then turned to Kaibo and requested, "Can I ask you to leave someone here to help my kids defend Earth while we are gone?" Kibo smiled and waved his hands, and 4 people appeared from Kibo's inner world. Tanbo, Xiao Mao, Sha Ken, and Vincent are my most trusted true disciples. Look after the place while we are gone. These 4 normally stayed cultivating in Kibo's inner world and rarely paid attention to other matters unless their master made them take a break. Even then, they had all of Kibo's inner world to explore. To them, it was the greatest place to train in, so they didn't like to leave. Vegeta lifted his eyebrows up in surprise. He could sense all of them were at what Kaibo called the minor god stage. "Your students are just as strong as you?" Vegeta said with a grin on his face. Kibo laughed. "Well, they are in certain ways." Tenbu puffed his chest up after hearing that. He was an adult with long black hair, copper-colored skin, and an acrobatic body-type build. "Master's way stronger than us. He's just being humble." Kibo blushed and coughed before saying, "Okay, Tanbo, take it easy." Walking over to the female disciple, Kibo placed his hand on her shoulder as he said, "This is Xiao Mao. She's my alchemy student." Xiao Mao had long black hair and pale peach skin. She had purple eyes and a great figure, a true beauty to behold. Xiao Mao bowed and said, "It's an honor to meet you. I witnessed your fight with Master, and you are truly strong." Vegeta grinned and nodded his head when Goku suddenly shouted, "Hey, when did you guys fight? I missed it?" Kibo cleared his voice again as he introduced his next student. "This is Vincent. He's my student in forging and array mastery. He's quite the talented genius, although a bit unadept when it comes to social situations." "I prefer to work at my forge," Vincent declared, gave a quick bow before speaking in a bland tone. "It's nice to meet you, fellas." Kibo then introduced his next student. "This is Shai Kan. Right now, he's a bit behind his fellow students in power because he chose to pursue many paths like me. However, his battle skills and capabilities are top-notch. Because of many different paths he pursues, he specializes in strategical combat. Chia Ken had blue hair and hazel-green eyes. His skin was slightly tan-colored, and his features were well-toned. He was a very handsome man and showed politeness as he bowed and said, "It is an honor to meet you. I'm Tenbo, Master's youngest disciple." Tenbo proudly stood forward. "Master's always calling me the most dangerous of his disciples." "No, I said my most glutinous of disciples." Kibo gave him a harsh stare. If Kibo wasn't regulating his diet, this boy would have tried to eat every treasure in his inner world. He's always receiving harsh complaints from Kibo every time he goes on an eating spree. Tenbo once ate an entire god essence mine that could be used to train up a couple of gods like they were candy. When Kaibo noticed, his heart nearly stopped because they were all grade 3 god-tier mines. Tanbo laughed. "What's the difference? Fearless, glutinous, still sounds like food to me." Kibo slapped his forehead. "This boy has a special constitution. He can devour anything. And when I say anything, I mean anything. Items, gods, and mortals alike." Whis gave the boy a deep stare. What a frightening physique. It simply goes against the heavens. To not only devour, but incorporate the laws of what he eats. This boy is truly fit to become a god of destruction. "Hey, don't go looking for my replacement just yet," Beerus shouted. Whis chuckled. "Say, Kibo." Kibo shook his head. "Sorry, this kid is hopeless. Kind of dumb, too. Even if you begged him, he wouldn't give you any time of the day. Seriously, though, it's not like I said he couldn't take other masters." "Hey!" Tenbo shouted, sounding more embarrassed than offended. "Anyways, you guys will stay here and protect the planet while we take care of this tournament," Kibo ordered out. Kaibo's kids nodded their heads and said, "Yes, father." Each of those from Kibo's group made a clone and chose to let their copies stay on Earth. Kibo did the same, making all the Zerti fighters look up and slap their foreheads. They forgot they could do that. The Zeki fighters used their split body technique and let their weaker halves stay. while the real ones ate a senzu to recover while went out in space to enjoy the fight. Vegeta was more worried about the people gathering around Fu's side than the Demon King himself. None of those that aligned themselves with Fu were weak, and all of them had frightening potential. If they all attacked at once, he wasn't sure they could fend them off alone. With Kibo here, he was at least slightly relieved. He knew Kibo was strong, maybe even stronger than him, for the moment at least. During their fight, Vegeta could tell that Kibo held back quite a bit in order to preserve his life. He was wondering just how much he was hiding. "Step aboard," Whis said while pointing to the glass cube, breaking Vegeta out of his thoughts. Whis led them aboard the chariot and started to fly away into the depths of space. Within a few minutes, the wives of the strongest Saiyans started pulling out meals and blankets. Chuchi and Bulma made it seem like they were going on a picnic rather than traversing the cosmos. The children gasped at how quickly they were moving. They stared at the stars with adventurous stares and watched them blur by like streaks of light. The group played Shiritori as they flew across the cosmos. They ate and talked about their lives somewhat. The large group of warriors even spared for a bit. Eventually, they arrived at the location of the last Super Dragon Ball and the location of the competition. When they reached the tournament grounds set up by Vidos and Whis, Vegeta saw the usual cast of characters. Even Hita was there. Vegeta smiled as he saw his supposed disciple chatting it up with the frost demon known as Frost. No changes. Either Fu is getting lazy or something's up, Vegeta thought as he looked around with all his sensory abilities at max. Could he be afraid of the angels? Vegeta mumbled before shaking his head. While Vegeta was mulling over his suspicions, Kiba walked up next to him and said, "Well, at least there is no Manaka." "Seriously, I was let down by that strongest mortal Beerus bragged about." Vegeta stood forward alongside Goku, Kibo, Piccolo, and Naruto. Since Fat Bud was constantly sleeping, Vegeta knew not to rely on his appearance for this event. Vidale had given birth recently, and Gohan was so busy with his new life as a parent, so he opted out of fighting in this tournament. Thankfully, Naruto wanted to join up. Vegeta didn't mind as Naruto was plenty strong, so much so that he wasn't worried about him losing against the candidates from Universe 6. Though Vegeta did think that Naruto wouldn't get a chance to fight. Goku ran around and talked with all of the old faces he saw. Vegeta nodded his head respectfully to the Elder Kai and current Lord of Lords. Kibito, Shin, and the Daikaioshin bowed and thanked Vegeta. Even knowing the last time they saw him, Vegeta scolded him harshly. Shin had learned much from his elder and had to agree with Vegeta's assessment. The Kaioshin didn't know much about his own universe nor his place in it. "You're friends with mortals?" the Lord of Lords from Universe 6 asked. "Yeah, the little one with spiky black hair saved my life," the Daikaioshin announced. "Which one?" the Kai from Universe 6 asked again. "That one," the Daikaioshin said as he pointed to Vegeta. Kaibo and his company also received many strange stares from the other Kais. The gods of creation could sense that they weren't normal humans. If not for their ability to hide their energies, the Kais would have sensed that everyone from the Naruto-verse was on an even higher echelon of godhood than themselves. "Hey, are you guys Saiyans?" Kiba marched up to them, asked with a gentle smile on his face. Vegeta smiled and nodded his head before saying, "Yes, and you must be one too." Goku tilted his head. "Really? He's a Saiyan. Where is his tail?" Kaba noticed that all of the Saiyans of Universe 7 still had their tails and said, "Our ancestors used to have them, but it seems that we've lost them to time." Vegeta nodded his head. He always thought that their evolution is what made their ability to transform into Super Saiyans easier. Although he also wondered if they could even transform into a primal Super Saiyan without the tail. The Universe 6 Saiyans lost the ability to transform into their primordial form for an easier way to transform Super Saiyans. Vegeta didn't like that idea too much. "Are you guys a warrior race like us?" Goku asked, pointing to himself. "None. We protect the universe by acting as a police force and bounty hunters. It's been that way for thousands of years now," Kabul announced with pride on his facial expression. Wow, so much different than the history of our race. From what Vegeta has told me, Saiyans used to conquer and sell planets, Goku mentioned as he tilted his head. We don't do that anymore, of course. Just like you, we use our talents to help people these days, Vegeta declared as he crossed his arms. Yeah, King Vegeta here really turned our race around. Goku laughed. King, Gabba said as he pointed to Vegeta. You're the king of science here. Yes, and don't think we'll go easy on you just because you're a Saiyan too. Vegeta gave a quick nod and returned to the group. I wouldn't dream of asking you to. I look forward to our fight, Gabba said as he gave a quick bow. Well, at least that is the same. Saiyans should always lust for battle. It's what defines us. Vegeta nodded his head before turning back to his team. Everyone watched as the groups were getting acquainted with one another when Vegeta called out and said, "Everyone, the test is starting." Just like in the canon, everyone was to write up a simple test that covered simple things that even a moron like Goku could solve. They finished up rather quickly and turned in their papers. Everyone had their papers graded and then handed back to them. Surprising Vegeta, Goku got a 75 on the test rather than a 50 like he did in the original story. It appeared that this Goku was slightly smarter than his canon counterpart. Everyone else scored a perfect result though. So Kibo couldn't resist teasing Goku by saying, even a child can answer all these problems. Maybe I should ask Chi-Chi to tutor you, Vegeta followed up. As Goku pleaded mercy with the Saiyan King, they shared a good laugh. Vedos interrupted them by shouting out, "It's time to begin. Please choose the order of which fighters will battle first." Everyone from Vegeta's group played the rock, paper, and scissors game. Yahoo! Goku cheered. Damn it, Vegeta and Naruto growled. Yeah. Kibo shrugged his shoulders, not really caring what order the fights were. I'm with you, Kibo. Piccolo crossed his arms as he stared at his position on the roster. Goku went first, Vegeta second, Kibo third, Piccolo fourth, and Naruto was last. Everyone looked across to see Goku jumping up and down as he said, "Yes, I go first." Vegeta grunted and said, "Don't let your guard down, and work off your meal before you get on the stage. I can't have you embarrassing us or our entire race out there." Goku grinned and chuckled as he rubbed the back of his head. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming here today. We are now starting the Universe 6 versus Universe 7's Gods of Destruction Invitational Tournament. An alien species similar to Majin Buu's appearance shouted out, "But first, we'll begin with the Universal Anthem." A small penguin-like creature wearing a bow tie waddled out onto the stage and with a microphone in hand. At the same time, all the gods and the two angels stood up with very serious expressions on their faces. The penguin opened his beak and said only 5 words, "Our universe is so huge," and with that, everyone gave a quick bow, only those from Earth seemed clueless. Before they could say anything, the announcer called out and said, "Now let the tournament begin. The first fight is Son Goku from Universe 7 versus Universe 6's Bitomo." The two stepped up onto the stage, while their universes cheered their names loudly and with excitement. Before Goku got up on stage, he started to do simple exercises and then ran around for a few minutes. "Goku, what are you doing?" After a bit, Goku stopped and then said, "I ate too much, but now I'm ready." Whis chuckled as everyone saw Goku hop on the stage with a childlike grin. Bitomo grinned as if he had already won. Goku walked up to him and said, "Let's have a good fight." "Begin," the announcer shouted as Bitomo swung his arm out. Goku easily evaded the attack and sent a punch so powerful that it made Bitomo fly backward towards the edge of the stage. Everyone on Champa's side was shocked at Goku's speed and power. However, Bitomo landed safely and stood back up with a grin. There was no visible damage, and the confident expression on the bear-like alien showed he was perfectly fine. "Wow, that didn't hurt you at all," Goku shouted as he suddenly appeared in front of Bitomo and grabbed his wrist. Bitomo tried to move, but Goku was too strong. With a simple flick of his wrist, Goku then lifted Bitomo into the air and started to punch him like he was a punching bag. After unleashing a flurry of furious blows, Goku finished his assault by performing a spinning jump kick. Goku's foot stretched out Botamo's gut, making him look like a piece of rubber. Botamo's eyes widened in horror before he flew off like a slingshot, snapping. Botamo suddenly bounced off the ground and stopped inches away from the edge. The large yellow bear grinned at Goku and said, "Physical attacks are—" Before he could continue, Kibo shouted out, "Goku, what are the 4 attack types fists can grant?" Goku looked over to see Kibo raise his hand outward and had shown his open palm. Kibo then gripped his fist and said, "Blunt." Kibo opened his hand into the shape of a claw, slash. Next, Kibo opened his hand into the shape of a sword finger, pierce. Finally, Kibo ended his explanation as he showed an open palm and said, "Wave." When Goku heard Kibo's explanation, it was like a bomb went off inside his head. "I get it." Goku quickly approached Botamo, and with a power swing, his hand turned into a blur. Suddenly, a loud slap echoed throughout the arena. Goku slammed his open palm into Botamo's gut in a movement so fast, even Hit was surprised. The shockwave rattled through Botamo's body like a supersonic boom. Botamo's body rattled and rippled like a body of water before he shot off the edge of the stage. Botamo hit the barrier surrounding the arena and fell face forward. The giant bear-like humanoid's eyes spun like pinwheels before Botamo fell to the ground unconscious. Everyone was shocked as they stared at Goku's easy victory. Whis turned to Kibo and said, "Very intuitive, Kibo. Is that part of your martial intent training?" Kibo smiled as he held up his fist. A strange aura in the shape of tiny fists gathered together around his hand as he said, "Martial intent is just the overall classification of all intents, whether it's sword, spear, fist, or foot. When one reaches a high enough attainment in the arts, they will manifest physical intent." Kibo flicked his hand back and forth, waving away the aura. "I assume it's similar to your ultra instinct training, only yours seems to cover the entire physique rather than focus a single part. In fact, I would dare say it should be called ultra intent rather than instinct." Whis tilted his head as he said, "Fascinating. Doesn't this mean that you get the same effects as our ultra instinct by using your martial intent?" Kibo chuckled. "No, it's not the same. I've only barely managed to reach the minor accomplishment stage of my martial intent. If I could reach major or perfection, maybe it would be similar." Kibo released the full might of his martial intent, using what he was most familiar with. It transformed into sword intent, making Kibo seem as if his entire body had become a sword. Both Champa and Beerus were stunned by Kibo's martial intent. They could sense the power radiating from his fist and its similarity to Ultra Instinct radiating from within the minor god. For the first time, Champa began to sweat. "How fascinating," Vidos said as she glared at Whis and Kibo. She then let out a soft giggle. "It seems my brother had made some interesting friends." Goku raised his hand with a V for victory as he said, "Bring out the next guy. I might be able to win this whole tournament before anyone else gets a chance to fight." Frost stepped up onto the stage with a smile and his whole faux innocent act. Both Vegeta and Kibo showed displeased expressions when they noticed that everyone was falling for it. Vegeta then shouted out, "Kakarot, don't fall for his good guy BS. Just kick his ass and be done with him." Everyone was a bit speechless, Cabba especially, as Frost had a good reputation in Universe 6. However, what Vegeta said next made Frost frown and shake in furious anger. He starts wars and jumps in acting as a savior. That bastard playing hero and protecting people out of the so-called kindness of his heart is all just an act. Frost does that in order to profit from their fears and distress. It's all so he can offer them up a fake protection service. Vegeta pointed to him and said, "This piece of walking scum is the one responsible for sending in the armies and bandits to attack in the first place." Everyone gasped. "I hope you have something to back up your slanderous words," Frost shouted as he glared at Vegeta like he going to kill him. Vegeta laughed and was about to use Lord Zuno as a reference to back up his words, when suddenly Kibo raised his hand and said, "Proof? If that's all you want." Kiba activated his Shintingan and used his ability to project the history of Frost in front of everybody. Without being able to stop him, Frost's entire life was displayed for everyone to see. All of his wicked deeds were put out into the open, Everyone was disgusted by his actions and showed a disdainful expression as Frost shouted, "This must be some magic trick, an illusion." Vedas chuckled and said, "No, this is all real." "Interesting. An ocular technique." "No, an ocular ability that is capable of displaying past events," Whis said, studying with a gleeful expression. "You can't fool angels," Kibo chuckled as he saw the shocked expression on Frost. Kaba's eyebrows twitched as visibly cringed at what he saw. Countless cycles of planning attacks on troubled planets, having him swoop in to be the hero after countless people had already died, and then gaining all the trading rights of the planets he lorded over. One, however, shook the young Saiyan to the core. It was the scene of Frost planning an attack on Sadala. The young Saiyan remembered that attack on his planet. Many innocent people died before the Saiyans managed to defeat and kill off most of the invaders. However, it led to a hostage situation with the royal family and a group full of citizens. At the last second, Frost swooped down and argued with the villain about the colossal fuck-up. They appeared to have come to an agreement, and the pirate captain seemed to calm down. Frost then promised to kill all the Saiyans and get him out of there. However, that was far from what he did. The Frost Demon killed off the pirate in the back, and then proceeded to kill the rest of the hostages' witnesses in cold blood. To think he was just covering up his tracks. He told us they were already dead. Cobber growled. His energy was spiking and his killing intent soared. Frost sighed and shook his head before saying, "Well, I guess the cat is out of the bag." An evil grin spread across his face as he then shouted, "That's right, it was all part of my plans. But don't think that this makes any difference. I'm the strongest person in Universe 6. There's nothing you can do about it." "Not really. It is standing right next to you," Kibo thought while rolling his eyes. Goku sighed. "Man, that's boring. You're nothing like Frieza. That guy is evil too. But at least he doesn't hide behind a fake facade. Facade, Kakarot. The word is facade." Vegeta corrected as he slapped his forehead. Kibo chuckled as he listened to Goku's antics. The rest of the crowd did as well while Goku rubbed the back of his head and laughed with an embarrassed tone. Frost turned to Goku and said, "Enough. I came here to fight and get my prize from Champa." Frost then turned to Champa and said, "The agreement is still in effect, right?" Champa growled in anger. Frost had played them all, and the entire time he was none the wiser. "Damn you, Frost. Don't think I'll let you live if you fail. You know, if you ever bothered to ask, I could have told you his history," Vedos informed, making Champa even angrier as he pulled on his fur around his ears. "Why did you tell me?" Champa shouted. To which Vedos responded with, "You said get the strongest guys you can find, and I repeat, strength is all that matters." Champa turned all his anger to Frost and ground his teeth, as he thought, it's all his fault. "I'll kill him when this is over. I'll save a haka just for you." Frost shook his head with a confident expression. The Frost Demon knew that Champa wouldn't just kill him. He believed himself to be the strongest being in his universe, and killing him would result in lowering their mortal level. Frost knew Champa wasn't willing to put up with lowering their mortal level. Seeing Frost's true nature had made Goku rather angry. All those suffering people, yet he had the audacity to act like a hero. Goku placed his hands out and got ready to fight. However, unlike what happened in the original timeline, Goku powered up to his regular Super Saiyan form and shocked everyone from Universe 6. "What? Saiyans can transform?" Champa shouted as he looked over at Kaba. "Kaba, can you do that?" Kaba shook his head. "No, I've never seen this before. His powers multiplied by tens of times. It appears these Saiyans aren't as simple as they seem," Vedos mentioned as she studied Goku's sudden surge of strength. Ki-bursting steps. Goku dashed towards Frost at unimaginable speeds. Even though he was running, the speed was akin to teleportation. In response to Goku appearing beside him, Frost gathered up his energy and quickly transformed into his final form. Goku, however, didn't even blink. He kicked Frost in the chest and sent him reeling back towards the ledge of the arena. Vegeta smiled as he saw the look of pain on Frost's face. The Frost Demon placed his hands on the ground and slowly used them to stop his momentum. While Frost was dragging his fingers across the ground, Goku appeared beside him and punched him in the jaw. Frost's face hit the ground and it bounced as Goku used an axe kick to push his head further into the ground and creating a rather large hole. The Frost Demon then flew back up out of the crater and started to throw everything he had at Goku. Goku easily dodged Frost's attacks as he spun around and kicked the Frost Demon in the gut. While Goku's foot bent Frost over, he placed his hands out and punched Goku's leg. The force of Frost's blow did nothing to the Super Saiyan at first. However, the moment Frost flew off the arena, Goku felt woozy. Vegeta clicked his teeth. That fool's playing around cost him the match again. Just as Goku fell, Frost slammed into the out-of-bounds region and was declared a loser by double KO. Goku landed on the ground and passed out, confusing the group. Chi-Chi ran to his side, calling out his name in worry as she held him up and asked, "Goku, are you okay?" Kiba stepped up and used a simple healing technique to dispel the toxins inside Goku's body, helping the Saiyan start to wake up in the process. Just as the next match was about to be called out, Vegeta shouted, "Hold on!" He teleported over to Frost and plucked his unconscious body off of the ground. Squeezing his wrist, Frost woke up screaming in pain before a small needle shot out an impression on his forearm. He cheated by bringing a weapon and using poison, Vegeta declared. Goku growled, "Hey, he cheated and he's a two-faced liar. This guy really is the worst." Vegeta slapped the back of Goku's head. "It's your own damn fault. If you hadn't been so obsessed with pulling out all his potential, he never even would have landed a punch on you." Frost tried to play off the needle as it was a natural part of his body. The announcer quickly proved him wrong by testing it himself. Vegeta punched Frost in the face and threw him over alongside the rest of Universe 6. The Saiyan King then turned to Kaban and said, "Arrest him and take him into custody when you return to your universe." Ikuba nodded his head. After seeing Frost's crimes and the Frost Demon's in-person confession, Kaba knew what he had to do as a peacekeeper and Saiyan of Universe 6. Kaba cuffed Frost and placed him next to the other contestants. When the announcer said that Goku's elimination was revoked, Champa looked like he wanted to kill Frost to the point of losing his sanity. However, after Vedas calmed him down, he realized that killing him wasn't the right move. Beerus taunted his brother as he said, "Lucky you, Goku, you might still get to fight." Vegeta grunted, "I'm fighting next." "But I didn't lose," Goku said as he raised his hands. "I still want to fight." "You had your turn," Vegeta shouted. With a lackluster tone, Goku slumped over and said, "Fine." Vegeta stood up on stage and said, "Bring out the next fighter." The announcer quickly snapped back into his introductions. Raising his hand, he shouted out, "Our next challengers are Vegeta from Universe 7 and Vegeta." Vegeta grinned as he looked at the large living metal man. However, before he could step on stage, Kibo tilted his head and said, "Hey Vegeta, I'll give the next fighter to you. Do you mind letting me have this one?" Vegeta looked at Kibo and said, "Why?" Kibo placed his hands together and said, "It's not every day you see a form of living metal. The blacksmith in me just wants to take a few pieces back to experiment with." When Vegeta heard this, he shivered a bit and clutched his arms. Vegeta looked over at the shaking Vegeta and said, "Fine, but in return I want a favor from the Uchiha over there." Kaibo could figure out where Vegeta was going with this. He then turned his head to Sasuke and said, "Hey Sasuke, can you do me a solid?"
The Sasuke lifted a brow.
Kibo ran over to his side and pointed to Kaba as he whispered a few words. Piccolo heard then and shook his head, looking at Vegeta in disbelief, he thought, and he just berated Goku for the same thing. Kibo quickly stood up on stage and said, "But now, let's get a good look at you." Kibo waved his hand and created a forging hammer out of hammer martial intent. Vegeta froze. He turned to Champa and seemed to be on the verge of crying as he placed his hands together in a pleading gesture. "Wait a moment, he's using a weapon, disqualify him," Champa shouted. The announcer looked at the solid and realistic-looking hammer in Kibo's hands and said, "No, he is safe. This is a construct made by energy. As it is made an energy technique, Kibo is safe to continue." Kibo grinned at Champa, and as soon as the match began, without warning teleported behind Vegeta and struck down on his shoulder with the hammer. A loud clang echoed and shook the entire asteroid. With a single blow, Kibo lopped off Vegeta's entire arm and transported it to his inner world. Vegeta proceeded to freak out and started to boil the magma inside his body. Within a few seconds, Vegeta repaired the damage to his arm and struck out at Kaibo with a fierce punch. Kaibo grabbed his fist and said, 1,000 tons, piece of cake. With a quick wave of his hands, Vegeta was thrown through the air and crashed outside the arena. Champa was shocked at Kibo's form of power. For a split second, Kibo revealed his godly essence and made him nearly spit out his drink. Vadas eyed Beerus's crew and said, well, now this is a surprise. To think that there are so many god candidates, Beerus's mortal level must be in the top rankings now. Champa ground his teeth as he saw Kibo being announced the winner. He stepped off the stage and said, I forfeit the next match to Vegeta. Kibo walked off the stage and pulled out the arm as everyone saw him pull out a bone-white hammer and anvil. Needless to say, they all gave him strange stares. However, it was a different story for Whis and Vados. The two angelic beings were looking at the objects in Kibo's possession with an intense sense of surprise. What are those made from? To contain such an ancient form of energy, Whis pondered. Vados looked over at Whis and asked, tell me, brother, where did you meet this fellow? Whis smiled back and said, he came from another reality. While Kibo broke off a finger, he sent the rest of Vegeta's arm back to his inner world. Next, he began to breathe hot flame made of golden extreme yang fire. The metal quickly heated up to a glowing red ember before Kibo placed the living metal piece against the anvil. As Kibo began to smack the metals, glyph-like arrays appeared between the metal and his hammer. With every swing of his hammer, ancient and primordial energies swept across the arena. Everyone within the vicinity felt like the primordial essence was trying to reforge their very bodies. If they knew how to cultivate, they could have used this energy to temper their physical forms. Unfortunately, they didn't know of any method to absorb the energy Kibo was emitting. On the upside, it was still able to grant them some benefits from just being exposed to it. Kibo's attention only wavered for a second as he saw Whis and Vados sitting in a meditative state. Oh! Kibo grinned in surprise. He didn't expect that the angels would be able to gain so much from his little show. As he went back to working on his newest experimentation, Vegeta coughed, shifting the mood back to the fight. The Saiyan King stood on stage and said, finally, can we continue? Kaba walked up and bowed down. I never thought I would be fighting a king of our race. I'm part of the royal guard, and I've never once thought of fighting the king of the Saiyans. Vegeta grunted, stand up, I'm not your king. The announcer raised his hand and was about to shout to begin when Vegeta held his hand out and said, wait, I want an actual challenge. If he can't transform into a Super Saiyan, then well, this is going to be a boring fight. Vegeta turned to Champa and said, do you mind if I help him get stronger? Beerus raised his voice as he shouted, Vegeta, what the hell are you doing? Don't help the enemy. Champa grinned, ha ha, what a straightforward fellow, I'll allow it. Kaba looked excited as he said, you're going to help me achieve that golden form. Vegeta grunted, don't look at me like that, kid. You were going to ask me to help you achieve that form, right? Kaba looked up and said, yeah, is that a problem? A vein spread across Vegeta's forehead as he said, where the hell is your pride? Kaba's eyes widened as Vegeta appeared in front of him and said, I get that you want to be stronger. I have nothing against that attitude, but to ask your enemy for help? The Saiyan King looked over at Goku before continuing to speak. Let's just say, I'm not fond of that way of thinking. Kaba gulped with a nervous expression. However, since you know nothing about this, I will provide you with a hint. If you want to be a Super Saiyan, you need to let go of those rigid combat methods that you were taught, stop suppressing your emotions, and go in the opposite direction. Before Kaba could say anything, he saw a black-haired pretty boy appear on stage and say, look into my eyes, as he made a few hand signs. Kaba saw a golden Sharingan spin as he was drawn into a world of illusion without knowing it. Sasuke stepped off stage as Kaba seemed to experience a surprising situation. Inside the illusion, it showed Vegeta transforming into a Super Saiyan and knocking him out instantly. When he awoke, he learned that their team lost and was sent back to Sadala. While he returned to his world, Kaba pondered on Vegeta's words. He took some time off from the royal guards and visited an old friend. It was his old captain, the Saiyan Renzo. The middle-aged Saiyan had retired from the army after an injury he got years ago on the battlefield. When Kaba told him about what Vegeta said about going in the opposite direction of his training, the captain started to laugh loudly as he slapped his disabled leg as he said, "Hey Kaba, what's the first thing they teach you when you spar with a fellow Saiyan for the first time?" Kaba tilted his head as the captain continued his explanation. "Do you remember the fear, excitement, the boiling emotions you felt that day?" Kaba nodded his head before saying, "We were told to bottle all that up, to put away our fears and emotions for when we have to kill. They'll affect our judgment in battle and can often lead to our deaths." Renzo smiled and said, "Well, forget all that. Did you know that sometimes, when your emotions run high, you can get bouts of strength that you never thought possible? I know you've seen it before." Kaba recalled his time in the war. There were many instances of comrades seeing their fellows die and striking out in rage with a power that went beyond their known limits. "Yep, let your emotions run wild," is what I think he was saying. "Just let go, you know," the former captain said as he stood up holding a cane. Kaba nodded his head and responded, "But doesn't that mean the Super Saiyan form is granted by accumulating negative emotions? Isn't that kind of bad?" Renzo grabbed his chin and with a pondering expression said, "I don't think it's like that. It's more like the power generated by a clash of negative and positive. After, if you aren't a nice person, it isn't easy to feel such unbridled rage. Now come on, let's go outside. I want to see this so-called Super Saiyan transformation." Kaba chuckled as he joined his old captain. They stepped outside the door to the small cabin to reveal a vast and green forested region. In the distance, one could see the kingdom of the Saiyan race standing in all its pride. They decided to attempt the fabled transformation in his front lawn. They didn't want to destroy the cabin by accident, something that was a common occurrence in Saiyan culture. Renzo followed behind him with a look of expectation. The retired Saiyan was curious to discover what a Super Saiyan looked like. The two didn't make it more than 10 feet before a loud boom echoed out next to their ears. A large concussive force rippled out behind them as a powerful pinkish laser beam exploded the captain's cabin. While the force from the explosion sent the two flying face forward, they saw something in the distance that made them quake in anger. A group of frost demons randomly shooting off energy blasts with malicious intent. The invaders were wreaking the homes of landscapes of their great planet while killing fleeing Saiyans at every turn with a gleeful expression. A group of the most elite Saiyan warriors flew into the skies and were currently fighting with a large army of frost demons. Kaba looked ready to fight, when suddenly 2 frost demons appeared in front of them. "Look, it's the one who imprisoned Lord Frost. Ha ha, I can't believe my luck. Call Lord Frost now, we've found him. The reward is ours, boys." The captain roared as he swung his cane out. He slapped the frost demon into the ground as he shouted, "Damn you bastards!" Blasting his head off with a mouth blast, Renzo roared at the other frost demons coming towards them. Kaba joined in on the fight and started to battle it out with the other frost demons. However, after killing a handful of frost demons, they were quickly surrounded by several of their elite force. The 2 Saiyans were beaten to the ground and restrained. They were forced to watch and sense a powerful presence suddenly appearing. Within the blink of an eye, the powerful being destroyed the entire Saiyan army with a single blast. Kaba watched in horror as Frost appeared before him, chuckling like an innocent child. "Goku, did you think that a mere prison could hold me? Kaba, you fool, how quickly you forget. I'm the strongest being in this universe." How did you escape the power dampeners?" Kaba roared. "I modified my own body to put in a handful of neat gadgets. A simple power dampener is a useless construct, not even worth my time," Frost said as he turned his back on them, facing the ocean of fire his army brought to their world. Throwing his arms up in victory, Frost laughed at the top of his lungs before he shouted, "Tell me, oh peacekeeper, what do you think of me now? I'm still on top, and your whole planet is burning." Kaba growled, "You bastard." "Ha ha, Did you really think that I would allow your kind to continue to grow, especially after losing so badly to those other Saiyans? Did you honestly think I would let you live and spread that Super Saiyan transformation across my universe? Kaba yelled out in fury. Damn you, Frost. Leave my people alone, you bastard. Ha ha. Frost then pointed to the captain. Did you know the one to end your captain's career was me? Kaba's eyes widened. That wasn't a stray ki blast. Oh, Kaba, you poor gullible fool, the Frost Demon chuckled with a mirthy grin. He then turned to his army and shouted, Raise the planet to the ground. Level 1 destruction phase. The army of Frost Demons shouted, Yes, in compliance. Frost nodded his head as they started to power up a combined ki wave. Stop! Kaba shouted at the top of his lungs. Tears were beginning to form around his arms. The Frost Demons continued to hold him down and forced him to bow in Frost's presence. The blast shot out and transformed into a massive wave that targeted every last strand of grass on the planet. All of Sedela was turned into a barren wasteland. Only the small patch of land that they were standing on survived. Tears rolled down Keba's face as felt every last Saiyan being wiped out. Only Keba and his master still lived, and it tore him up inside. Keba screamed out in rage. His power started to climb rapidly, and his aura suddenly took on a golden hue. His entire planet was razed to the ground. Without mercy or reason, it was razed down in an instant. The young Saiyan warrior was losing his sense of reason when he shouted at the top of his lungs. Kikaba challenged his rage into his body and felt his spine starting to heat up. Frost showed a fearful expression as he pointed at Kaba and shouted, Kill him now. Outside the illusion, Vegeta watched as Kaba stared into empty space. Worried that they were cheating, Champa growled, Beerus, what did your mortals do? Sasuke lifted a brow. Hey, I'm a god too, you know. A loud bang was heard as Kaba suddenly shouted in rage. An explosion of golden light shot out of Kaba as his body transformed into a Super Saiyan. Inside the illusion, his golden aura blotted out the sky and tore open the clouds. He quickly struggled out from the grasps of the Frost Demons and charged towards Frost with blazing fury in his eyes. Frost grinned as he flew towards Kaba and punched his head in the ground. Is this all you're capable of? Frost shouted as he grabbed Kaba's hair and lifted his entire body into the air. Keba yelled out in pain as Frost then questioned in a playful tone, Now what should we do with your master? Kaba was shocked to the core. He didn't know why, but Frost was countless times stronger than he remembered. The young Saiyan struggled against his grasp, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't shake free. Frost raised his finger before pointing at Kaba's master and saying, This should be fun. A small sphere of ki appeared at the tip of Frost's finger and started condensing. Frost, stop! Kaba shouted in desperation, clawing at the ground beneath him while trying to drag his body closer to his teacher. Frost smiled in response and said, You know, I always hated this man. He was so full of himself, his pride on the battlefield sickened me to the point of wanting to vomit. Kaba growled while yelling at the top of his lungs, Frost, don't you dare! Frost laughed and shot a beam through his master's only good leg. Frost expected a scream, but Renzo gritted his teeth and glared at the Frost Demon. Cuckoo, so much spirit. Frost laughed as he powered up another beam. Kaba yelled out in fury, Stop it! The Saiyan's power continued to fluctuate and started to grow. However, Frost's grasp remained firmly in place, gripping his hair and forcing his face back into the dirt. The leader of the Frost Demons shot out with another beam. The attack evaporated the captain's arm. Renzo laughed away the pain as before. He growled at Frieza, Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Kaba repeated over and over again as he tried to lift his body. Frost continued to laugh maniacally. Ha ha ha! The so-called Super Saiyan is this weak. Why did I even worry in the first place? Come on, Kaba, smile. Don't you enjoy hearing the screams of your master? Kaba roared and demanded to be let go. In an act of desperation, he cut his hair with a thin blade of ki and started to run towards his master. Frost's leg came down and hit Kaba on the top of his head. The ground cracked beneath him as Kaba's face smashed into the earth. Kaba cried out in pain while Frost continued to laugh. The Frost Demon then raised his hand and blasted dozens of holes through his master's body. Kaba, the caption called out as he vomited up a mouthful of blood. Kaba's head was being held into the dirt by Frost's foot again, forced to watch as Frost pointed his death beam at the Renso's head. Kaba began to buck and struggle as wildly as he could, desperately pulling out every last drop of his strength from within him. The earth around them shook and cracked under Kaba's struggles as he shouted out in agony, "Stopitnow. God damn it! Just let go!" were the last words of his beloved master spoke before Frost blasted a hole straight through the center of his forehead. Kaba screamed in pain as his eyes turned white. He felt like his soul was breaking while the rage took over his consciousness. Kaba then felt both his ki and his blood beginning to boil. At this instant, the entire illusion was swept away. Kabaga was screaming in the center of the ring with tears streaming down his eyes. Blue lightning rippled out of his aura like a furious storm as his hair spiked up to a sharper style. Vegeta smiled and said, "Maybe this won't be so bad after all." Kaba felt his body radiating with what he thought was limitless energy. The boost of 100 times his base was a completely new feeling to Kaba's body, and he didn't lie to himself or deny his feelings. Kaba liked it. Kaba's muscles felt like steel, and his blood was itching, boiling to fight against Frost. However, he scanned the area and saw that he was back at the tournament grounds. The Frost Demon that was just terrorizing him was nowhere to be seen. "What? The Saiyans have another transformation?" Champa shouted with wide eyes. "It appears these are no normal Saiyans indeed," Vardas replied as she slightly stopped her meditation and opened one of her eyes. "Maybe we should pay special attention to their race when we return." Champa scratched his chin. "Well, there's nothing wrong with their attitudes, and they proved beneficial for the well-being of our universe." After thinking it over, the god of destruction turned to Vidas and said, "Permission granted. After the tournament, have a guardian god anointed for planet Sedela. You plan on nurturing the planet's inhabitants?" "The dust." "I am," Champa declared as he watched Kaba with an excited expression. "This form is even stronger than the one used by Beerus's Saiyans. With Kaba and Hit left, victory is all but assured," Champa thought as he rubbed his hands together. Kaba looked at his own hands and then to Vegeta before asking, "Frost, what happened to... is this... me?" Vegeta clapped his hands. "The illusion of the Sharingan is impressive. To think that it can fool even a Super Saiyan psyche. If he didn't reach Super Saiyan 2, he wouldn't have been able to escape. It's what Kaibo asked for. He said to go easy on the kid. I could have pushed him harder, but that's a bit risky to his psyche," Sasuke replied as he sat back down in the audience stands. Vegeta was a bit surprised by Sasuke's reply. The Saiyan King rubbed his chin while saying, "So your illusion is even more capable than I first thought." "That was an illusion, but it felt so real," Kaba shouted in disbelief. His lack of focus caused him to release his current form. Vegeta smiled and said, "Rage, desperation, despair. Emotion is the key to furthering the Super Saiyan transformation." Vegeta then stood in his fighting stance. "Come show me the power of your Super Saiyan 2 form." "Super Saiyan 2? Kaba said, scratching his head. "Stop wasting my time and transform already," Vegeta shouted with a frown on his face. Kaba stood straight and recalled the emotions he felt in the illusion. His body glowed as he powered back up to Super Saiyan 2 and caused Vegeta to smile. "Aren't you going to transform too?" Kaba said as he got in his fighting stance. Vegeta smiled and said, "No need. You're not at my level yet." Kaba smiled and said, "Okay, here I come." With a blast of incredible speed, Kaba quickly appeared in front of Vegeta before raising his fist. Kaba put all of his strength into his uppercut, aiming for the bottom of Vegeta's chin. Vegeta grinned and closed his eyes. Kaba wanted to pull his fist back, but it was too late. He followed through and saw that Vegeta not only dodged the attack, but he countered even faster than he could react. As Kaba felt Vegeta's first flying into his gut, the Saiyan teenager coughed up a mouthful of blood before the force from the blow shot him backward into the air by more than a few feet. The young Saiyan forced himself back to the ground, and his feet slid back a few inches before Vegeta sent out another punch towards Kabe's face. Kakurba barely dodged the speeding fist that could destroy planets with a flick and gulp. As a small scratch across his cheek started to bleed, he grabbed Vegeta's arm and vaulted off it in an attempt to kick at his face. Vegeta loosened his body and shifted his head slightly. The moment he dodged Kaba's attack, Vegeta's entire body moved away from Kaba's leg and jumped up, kicking Kaba in the back of the head. As Kaba flew off, Vegeta somersaulted back onto the ground before he jumped straight up into a Gallic Buster. Kaba blasted out with his own Ki Blast, that was also a Gallic gun. Vegeta grinned as his power easily ran through Kaba's energy and smashed into him. Kakeba was flung back and hurt, but he didn't stop fighting. After regaining his balance, he charged towards Vegeta and started to punch and kick with everything he had. Vegeta continued to keep his eyes closed. He was trying his best to remember the sensation he experienced in his fight with Kibo. Both Champa and Beerus were shocked to see that Vegeta was showing signs of learning Ultra Instinct. "How can a mortal be such a genius?" Champa shouted in surprise. "Oh my," Vedas said as she turned to Whis. "Hey brother, do you think you can lend me that one?" Whis chuckled and said, "I can't force anyone to do anything. Offer what you will, his decision is his to make." Whis said before he paused for a second, "But the Vegeta I know would probably turn you down." "I thought so." Vedas let out a sigh of disappointment as she slumped over. Kobo was thrilled to see how powerful Vegeta was. He continued to push the limits of his new power while thinking, worthy of the king's title. Vegeta suddenly frowned as a punch got through. The force from the blow made his head lean back before Kaba followed up with a spinning kick to the Saiyan King's temple. Kaba's kick sent Vegeta flying towards the edge of the ring. Surprised by getting those hits in, Kaba paused, which cost him dearly. Vegeta teleported above him and did a front flip sick to the back of his head. Kaba flew towards the out-of-bounds region and nearly hit the floor. The teenage Saiyan stalled his movements and hovered a few inches above the ground as he heard Vegeta call out, "Damn, it's not enough pressure. Sorry, Kaba. I'll be ending this match now." Kaba flew up and landed on the stage and said, "I'm not going to give up." Vegeta smiled and said, "I know. As a reward for pushing me as far as you have, I'll show you the power that goes beyond a Super Saiyan 2. Vegeta powered up and started to shake the entire rock-covered Super Dragon Ball. Cracks appeared over the barrier made by Vados and air began to leak out. Vados shook her head and lamented as she said, "Ah, my barrier, to think it would be broken so easily." Kibor then shouted, "Korean Shion." His wives smiled and created a massive ceiling array. Vedas helped out by strengthening her barrier before she then looked over at the two girls, reinforcing it. The strange array filled the angelic being with shock and surprise. Vadas looked at Whis then to her charge. Champa, the angel, let out a disappointed sigh as she said, "Such a difference." Whis chuckled as Vegeta's announcement interrupted everyone. "This is the mastered form Super Saiyan 1. Its maximum multiplier is 75 times your base form." Kebe was shocked to feel Vegeta's power pouring out of his body. He then powered up again. Blue bolts appeared around Vegeta as his hair got sharper. This is Mastered Super Saiyan 2, a 2000 times bonus when mastered. Once more Vegeta's power climbed up. This is to go even further beyond. This is a Mastered Super Saiyan 3. His hair grew longer, somewhere between an SD3 and SS4, while his forehead and brow became ever so slightly more pronounced. Its mastered multiplier is 1000 times, Vegeta informed, before he started yelling again. His ever-soaring energy caused everyone to go wide-eyed. Vegeta then growled before he shouted, "Grrr!" And this is Super Saiyan 4. Again, Vegeta's yelled out and sent his power skyrocketing. His body returned to its more human appearance and started to slim down slightly. Nowhere near a Super Saiyan God's kind of slenderness, but somewhere between that and Vegeta's base physique. His fiery golden aura shook the barrier as it unceasingly poured out of his body. Then, with a simple act of breathing inward, Vegeta pulled all the golden energy inside his body, like he was devouring it. His hair then reverted to his base form style. The only difference was that it flowed loosely in the wind of his energy and remained the traditional Super Saiyan golden color. His eyes gleamed the color of a bestial dark gold and a deep black pupil in the center of the iris. Everyone on the opposing team gasped at Vegeta's new transformation. What power? Cabba said as he struggled to fight against the wind kicked up by Vegeta's aura. Vegeta grinned. This is the final form of our race's Super Saiyan branch of transformations. It is 5 times stronger than Super Saiyan 4, and the multiplier continues to increase endlessly. The more you adapt to the form, the stronger you grow. This is amazing, Goku said with a slack jaw while the rest of Universe 6 looked on with shock and awe. Currently, I've trained this form to increase my base by 50,000 times. Vegeta gloated. Such incredible power. I wonder if I can reach this form. Cabba muttered. This isn't the end of our transformations, Vegeta declared as he pointed to his tail. Unfortunately, without one of these, I'm not sure if you can become a Primal Super Saiyan. Primal Super Saiyan? There are more transformations, Cabba muttered. Vegeta turned to Kibo and asked, You called it your primordial form, correct? Kibo nodded his head, grinning from ear to ear. Through the use of our tails, our universe can transform into the great Uzaru. It also holds the key to unlocking the second branch of Saiyan transformations, Vegeta said as he wrapped his tail around his waist. Uzaru, I think I've heard that in from the legends and old lore, Cabba rubbed his chin. Using Blot's waves generated by the full moon, we can grow into giant-tailed apes. Vegeta raised his hand and created an orb in the shape of a small moon. He then threw it into the air and started growing as his eyes lay upon the fake moon. It wasn't as strong, but the giant ape form caused Cabba to shake a bit as he recalled the time his mother threatened him to behave, or else the Uzaru will come to eat him. Good Lord, Cabba said as he felt Vegeta's energy drop. In this form, our power is boosted by 10 times. A far cry from the Super Saiyan modifier, Vegeta said before he powered up. However, if we combined our Uzaru form with Super Saiyan, you'd get a golden Uzaru. Vegeta transformed as his fur turned golden. His power surged out, spilling over into the stands and shocking those that felt the change. The golden Uzaru is 10 times the highest Super Saiyan modifier, Vegeta declared as he flexed his power. 50,000 times 10, your power multiplier is 500,000. That's insane. Cabba nearly fainted out of pure disbelief. Vegeta held his hand out and continued to explain, Don't pass out yet, there is still more to come. Cabba nodded his head and looked on in awe and excitement. Cabba Vidos and the rest of Universe 6 couldn't believe their ears. Super Uzaru is the next step, but that's what Kakarot has started calling it. I call it Primal Super Saiyan. This form, when accessed, is 40 times greater than a golden Uzaru. When mastered, it is 5 times greater than a golden Uzaru multiplier. The total multiplier for Super Uzaru form is 50 times your highest Super Saiyan modifier. There is no leakage of power or stamina in this form, and if you add in Super Uzaru's multiplier with the Super Saiyan 4 transformations multiplier, damn it, Kakarot was right. That is catchy. Vegeta shook his head and sighed before saying, Point is, this next form is 50 times my highest Super Saiyan modifier. Vegeta's ape fur grew out as his hairstyle remained the same. All of the Saiyan King's fur was dark red, and his black base form hair waved in their air like it was on fire. Vegeta's gaze drifted over to Goku and the rest as he said, 2.5 million times my base power levels, that is the combined power of Super Uzaru and Super Saiyan. Vegeta's power rocked the nearby galaxies and made everyone on his team smile, while everyone on Champa's team was alarmed. The irises of his eyes remained golden yellow, while his pupils changed to a vibrant and beautiful azure color. This is the pinnacle of the physique for Saiyans. When you master the primordial Super Saiyan transformation, your physique alone will be on par with the gods, Vegeta announced. Goku grinned as he rubbed the back of his head. It is pretty cool when you think about it. Cabba looked at Vegeta in awe before saying, Such power. Cabba was stunned. He looked at Vegeta with surprise and said, Such power? Can I really achieve such a form? Hit looked up for the first time since the tournament began. Sensing his surprise, Vegeta smiled and said, "Of course, if you can somehow access Super Uzaru." "Damn it, I did it again." Vegeta rubbed his forehead while the crowd snickered. "If you talk to your Kais, I'm sure someone there knows how to regrow your tail. If work hard enough, you can even achieve the true Super Saiyan God form as well." Vegeta powered up until his entire body changed color. His hairstyle remained in his base form, while the color of his fur, irises, and hair changed into a vibrant red color. Hit's eyes widened as he sensed Vegeta's power. Vegeta noticed and gave him a grin before saying, "This is true Super Saiyan God Red. There is a lesser form we call Saiyan God." Vados squinted at Vegeta. My, how interesting the Saiyan race is. Is that origin God key?" She was seriously considering searching planet Sadala for the next God of Destruction candidate. "Is that God key?" "No, it feels a bit stronger than God key," Champa shouted with wide eyes. "I can't sense his energy," Kikaba thought as he saw Vegeta disappear from his sight. In an instant, Vegeta reappeared in front of Kaba and hit him in the gut. As a whirlwind of force blew by the two, Kaba felt all the energy drained from his body before he slumped over in an unconscious state. Splashing Kaba's face, the Saiyan roused from his unconscious state and bowed to Vegeta before thanking him. Vegeta caught him and set him down gently. "This is—" Champa was speechless as Vegeta powered down, pulled out a vase of water. Champa turned to Beerus and shouted, "Beerus, what's the meaning of this? How can your mortals use God Ki? You're cheating, aren't you?" Beerus pulled his cheek down around his eye and stuck out his tongue as he said, "Don't be a sore loser. It's not my fault your Saiyans are lagging behind so much." Champa growled, "You—" Vegeta's words then caught everyone's attention. "I win." The announcer nodded his head and declared Vegeta the winner as Kaba coughed up a mouthful of water. The teenage Saiyan looked around in a confused manner and sighed, "I couldn't even survive one punch. True Super Saiyan God Red, huh?" Kaba smiled and let out a soft chuckle. "Thank you, Master." He let out a bow. Vegeta waved his hands. "Enough of that. I didn't do enough to have you call me such a name." Vegeta smiled and helped Kaba up. "You'll have to let me visit Sadala one day. In return, you can visit my world. I named it Sadala in remembrance of Sadala. I changed the name a bit because I wanted it to represent a new start for the Saiyan race, while holding on to our Saiyan heritage." "No, you taught me more than you know. It's only right to call you such," Kaba responded adamantly. Vegeta sighed. "I can't help but think you're more scheming than I originally thought." Kaba chuckled and bowed again. "Thank you for helping me, Master." Vegeta rolled his eyes. "Fine. You may call me what you wish." Goku was giggling as he saw Vegeta acting in this manner. "Shut it, Kakarot." Vegeta grunted. "Ha ha! Vegeta, that was so nice of you." Goku started to laugh harder. Vegeta turned to the renowned assassin and said, "It's about time. Maybe you can help me push the limits of my power." Vegeta was tempted to blow up his own team grounds when Hit suddenly stepped up. Hit walked forward in a confident stride before stopping a few feet away from Vegeta. Vegeta got into his fighting stance and closed his eyes again. Placing his hands in his pockets while facing the Saiyan King, Hit then asked in an earnest tone, "Well now, do you think you can beat me without transforming?" The sounds of Kibo still hammering away on his anvil created a strange tempo that forced Vegeta into a trance-like state. Vegeta didn't say anything in response. He focused on his senses inward and let his body completely relax. Move without thinking, attack without restraint, feel, don't command, act, don't think, Vegeta thought as he let out a breath of fresh air. It was like the sound was sinking to the rhythm of his beating heart. Vegeta dashed forward and swung out with his full strength. The air crackled around his body as his fist closed in on Hito. In response to the sudden assault, the assassin stood in place as he waited for the most opportune time to act. The moment Vegeta came into contact with the tip of Hit's nose, the Saiyan King's fist passed through him like a mirage. Hit's fist appeared from beside Vegeta, aiming for the side of his chin. Vegeta tilted his head and felt a burning sensation run across his cheek. Hit was surprised as he saw Vegeta's leg aiming for his waist with a fierce-looking punch. The assassin activated his time skip and once more attempted to knock Vegeta out by hitting a certain point on his chin known as the button. Vegeta predicted where Hit would strike next and placed his open hand out. When the assassin's attack landed, there was no eruption of energy, no waves of concussive force, only silence. He's actually landing attacks, but unlike earlier when he fought that other Saiyan, I don't sense the same technique of Ultra Instinct being used. Beerus tapped his tail against the stone seats. Hit then felt his stomach burn as Vegeta's knee stretched out his stomach and forced him to keel over. Hit felt like his fist was sinking in a marsh before being gently guided away from his body, opening up his defenses for Vegeta to unleash hell. Whis smiled. He's trying to incorporate more of his offense into his Ultra Instinct training. By letting pain guide his movements, his body is reacting on its own. Vegeta's progress is very impressive. Whis turned to Beerus and said, "He may even master it before you do." Beerus grunted as he said, "It's not that easy." The sound of air pressure roaring interrupted the two. Vegeta felt his skin burn again as Hit managed to improve his time skip's limit by half a second. Smoke ran off the Saiyan's cheek once again as he barely dodged another punch. The bruise quickly healed as Vegeta appeared in front of Hit and created a wave of heat that blasted out from his punch. Hit's fist snapped back into his pocket as he jumped forward towards Vegeta. Hit threw out another punch and aimed for his chin again, still trying to rattle the Saiyan King's brain. Vegeta grunted as he tilted his head and reduced the damage of the blow before he landed a gut punch that sent Hit's feet skirting back against the ground. Hit charged forward and started to throw a flurry of blows towards Vegeta. With his eyes still closed, Vegeta focused everything on his senses. He started dodging left and right while walking further into Hit's range of attack. Hit punched out toward his gut, so Vegeta rolled off his fist the moment it came in contact and raised his knee before kicking Hit's arm away. Every time Hit almost landed an attack, Vegeta countered with a brutal blow. Hit gasped before he gasped and let out a puff of spit alongside air in his lungs. Vegeta tiled down and let Hit's leg rush off the side of his body. As the burn mark faded, Vegeta leaned back in and punched Hit in the side of the waist. Hit switched it up and tried to hit Vegeta's side with a spinning kick. Vegeta moved into attack, when all of a sudden the Saiyan King jumped back, narrowly avoiding a terrifying punch that sent a trail of blood flying off the side of Vegeta's face. Its time skip improved again as he lashed out at Vegeta. However, Vegeta continued to dodge with everything he had and tried his hardest to counter. Cuts and bruises quickly formed across Vegeta's skin as quickly as they healed. Vegeta continued to make slight advantages as he pushed Hit back every now and then, jumping around the ring faster than most could keep up with. Even though Vegeta was taking damage, he was slowly guiding Hit exactly where he wanted him to be. Without realizing it, Hit found himself in the corner of the ring. Seeing that Vegeta had managed to trap him, Hit responded by growing even stronger and launching out his strongest punch yet. As Vegeta dodged, a light bluish-white aura erupted from his body as his hair slightly waved in the wind. The Saiyan King opened his eyes, revealing his glowing yellow irises, and with a loud shout, Vegeta's aura exploded outward. He looked at his own hands and flexed his fingers into a grip and then back outward. "Omen state," Kibo said as he looked at Vegeta in surprise. The power surging off of Vegeta caused shockwaves all across the universe. Everyone at the tournament was stunned, Goku especially. His eyes glittered as he gripped his fists. "So that's Ultra Instinct?" Whis smiled as he looked over at Beerus and said, "Well, now to think he managed to get to this point through his own methods. Vegeta, you really are quite the genius." Beerus and Champa had wide eyes as they stared at Vegeta. "How?" Vadas chuckled. "I don't know why you're surprised, Beerus. After all, you've already managed to reach minor mastery over Ultra Instinct." Champa looked at Beerus as he lifted his brow. He looked to his angel for confirmation, and then back to his brother before saying, "You managed to achieve that." Beerus turned his attention back towards the fight. "That's none of your business." Champa was stunned. He then gripped his fist until his knuckles popped, thinking, has he really pulled that far ahead? What is that form? Cabba shouted. It's the precursor to the Angel's most famous technique, Ultra Instinct. Vados announced to our universe's team members. Cabba's eyes turned wide as he stared back at the person that he considered his master. He let out a gulp. Well, I guess I'll just have to push myself even farther. Vegeta was still trying to capture the sensation of using Ultra Instinct. He felt like all of his Saiyan forms had collapsed into this single technique, while breaking through their limits. His energy was constantly rising and his base form was absorbing the energy of Ultra Instinct Omen. Vegeta then looked at Hit and said, please use every weapon in your arsenal. Don't hold back anything. I think you have the greatest chance to push me to the next stage. Vegeta said before he turned to Champa and asked, can we allow this to become a deathmatch? Hit raised his brow and said, what are you up to? Vegeta was beginning to acclimate to this Omen form when he spoke. You can't use all your techniques in this fight, right? You seem to be holding back quite a bit. Champa tilted his head and said, Beerus, what's your opinion? Beerus looked surprised at his brother's question and then turned to Vegeta and said, are you confident? Vegeta nodded his head before asking with a cocky tone, do you think I'll lose in this state? Beerus laughed at Vegeta. Seeing how stable his new form was, he realized that Vegeta had indeed become his rival, that the Oracle Fish mentioned. If he continued to train with him, his power that had stagnated for so long would begin to grow once again. Seeing this as a good opportunity to make Vegeta stronger, Beerus nodded his head before saying, we'll allow it. Hit looked a bit puzzled, but then turned back to Vegeta and said, don't regret this. Vegeta faced Hit and said, don't worry, just come at me with everything you have. Hit took his hands out of his pocket and started to power up. Everyone was shocked to feel Hit's full power. Kibo paused his forging for a second and said, his power and control isn't that bad, but his understanding of the Tao of time manipulation is way worse than Boto's. Vegeta nodded his head and said, good, now come at me with everything you have. Hit jumped towards Vegeta. He was slowing the time around Vegeta and increasing the speed of time around his own body. He moved to kick Vegeta's head and was stunned as he saw Vegeta's eyes tracking his movements. Vegeta blocked his kick with an elbow guard and then punched out towards Hit's face. Hit raised his guard into a cross block before he felt Vegeta's fist slam against his arm, sending him flying back. Hit's feet slid across the ground as the friction created a small trail of smoke along the way. Blood dripped from Hit's nose as a large bruise formed around his mouth. Hit lowered his arms and then wiped the blood from his face. Hit's brow furrowed at the sight of his blood before he looked at Vegeta and said, impressive. Vegeta said, now that you understand, quit holding back. Hit suddenly disappeared. He paused time for a single second, but someone that moves as fast as him, a second might as well be an hour. His hands turned into a pair of blades as he charged towards Vegeta. When the godly assassin was about to pierce through Vegeta's chest, Hit saw the Saiyan's eyes shift over to his position. Impossible. He can still keep up, Hit thought as he shot his hands out, aiming for Vegeta's heart. At the last second, Vegeta's arms turned into a blur and he grabbed Hit's spear hand the very moment it touched his armor. Hit felt like he had run into a brick wall. Vegeta's grip held on tightly as Hit lifted his body into the air while raising his leg up to kick Vegeta in the head. Vegeta blocked with his free arm and sent his elbow into Hit's shin. Hit then shifted his body to strike out with his second blade hand. Vegeta stopped his attack by gripping Hit's fist. Holding on to both of Hit's wrists now, Vegeta opened his mouth before letting out roaring ki beam. The white beam of energy slammed into Hit's body and exploded at point-blank range. Hit's body flew out of the plume of smoke created by the explosion while coughing up a mouthful of blood and looking quite wounded. Quickly realizing the danger he was in, Hit unleashed everything he had as he moved so fast, it appeared that he teleported to Vegeta's side. He struck out and aimed at Vegeta's arm with a cutting motion. Vegeta raised his elbow while stepping back slightly. The two clashed as Vegeta leaned to the side and ended up with only a scratch. Using this moment to rush in, Vegeta took a single step in and raised his knee, aiming for Hit's gut. Hit responded by following up with a stabbing motion towards Vegeta's neck. Vegeta tilted his head and landed his knee kick while gripping Hit's wrist again. Vegeta frowned as he felt something wrong. A single line of blood dripped from his chin, noticing that once again Hit was able to strike again. Vegeta's eyes widened as he suddenly threw out a punch, cracking Hit in the jaw and sending his neck flying back. Hit's spare hand stopped a second away from touching Vegeta's neck, and before Hit could retrieve his hand, Vegeta grabbed onto it. Once again, Vegeta felt time grow sluggish around his body, annoying "I'll just break it." Vegeta fluxed his energy and forced Hit's knees to the ground with a fierce headbutt. Hit pushed himself back up with all of his strength while his aura shot into the sky in defiance. Using great force, he pointed his hands into blades as he tried to push back against Vegeta's power. Vegeta grinned as he sensed Hit growing even stronger. "Good, show me everything." Two stood in place as their auras started to climb to the sky. Vegeta held onto his hand that was targeting his throat and the other that was aiming for his heart. The ground beneath them started to crack, forcing them to separate and take their battle to the sky. Kibo frowned and said, "The arena can't keep up with their growth? Well, we can't have that." He slammed the remaining piece of living steel into the arena. The bone-white hammer covered the arena in a grey mist that mixed into the stone-like platform. Within seconds, the living metal took shape and infused itself into the arena grounds. "That should be useful," Kibo said, as a loud explosion rocked the space around them. The two fighting in the air collided dozens of times. Each time they exchanged blows, Hit started growing stronger and stronger. Beerus frowned as he said, "What's Vegeta doing?" Goku saw that Vegeta had several tiny cuts that healed almost instantly. With his mastery, shouldn't he be dodging these attacks? Whis smiled and said, "Vegeta's trying something different." Beerus looked at Whis then Vegeta and said, I get it." Goku scratched his head as he said, "What is it?" Whis smiled and said, "Vegeta is taking a more offensive stance to this precursor form, risking death to better land blows. He's using this method to stimulate his ability to grow under crisis and master Ultra Instinct. Unfortunately, it appears Vegeta doesn't want to lose this training partner yet. He has been restoring his opponent's stamina over the entire match." "That moron!" Beerus yelled out as he ran his claws through his furry head in frustration. Everyone was shocked when they heard that bit of information. They all looked back to the Vegeta gaining more momentum as the fight continued to grow more intense. "Is Vegeta really healing Hit?" Gohan asked. "Yep, using time powers like that constantly should put a large strain on Hit's body. However, it's still surprising to see how quickly he's learning," Whis answered. "To think his power is actually able to rise so quickly is really surprising," Goku stated as he stared at the fight. It was pretty clear he wanted to fight Hit as well. Kibo nodded his head. Yes, to think that just allowing him to stay at the peak of his health in the middle of combat is allowing Hit to improve his understanding of time by leaps and bounds. "Was that a pun?" Bulma asked. "Depends. Did you find it funny?" Kibo chuckled. Vegeta grinned as he felt like his body was constantly evolving. With his auto-heal spell active, Vegeta could quickly recover from any of his wounds, and by casting heal on his opponent, Hit's stamina was constantly at its peak. Being able to experience the constant use of his time manipulation without tiring was a great experience for him. His original 1-second limit stretched out into 5 seconds. Vegeta blocked and countered Hit's attack every time they came to trade blows. Hit was smiling as he targeted all of Vegeta's vitals. The threat of death remained over Vegeta throughout the entire match. However, it was clear to Hit he could have lost at any second as well. Vegeta was using him as a whetstone to sharpen his Ultra Instinct technique. Each attack made Vegeta's base form grow wildly, and in return, Hit had to force his power to grow to keep up. The assassin's potential was being pulled out to the fullest, and he knew it. Normally using his time powers drained him of stamina. Hit understood that Vegeta was healing him somehow. The two slammed back onto the ground and started to exchange blows. Vegeta slammed his fist into Hit's chest and dodged a sharp cut to his chest by a mere inch. Vegeta spun around as the tips of his fingers slipped past his chest, making a thin trail of blood spill out before Vegeta aimed his knee at Hit's head. Hit placed his elbow out and blocked Vegeta's knee and struck out at his hip with a cutting motion, attempting to cleave of Vegeta's leg in a single stroke. Vegeta slammed into the arena and jumped up, dodging the attack. At the same time, he unleashed a powerful ki blast towards Hitl. The moment Hit dodged the beam, Vegeta blasted the ground as he sensed Hit using his time skip to move behind him. Vegeta tilted his head to the side as Hit's hand skirted past his cheek from behind. Vegeta then grabbed Hit's arm, flipped him over his body with a powerful swinging motion, and slammed Hit's back into the ground. The ground rumbled, but the arena stayed intact while Hit coughed up a mouthful of air and blood. Whis applauded Kibo's forging technique as Vegeta then lifted Hit back into the air and attempted to slam him into the ground again. Hit shook off the damage as he quickly repositioned himself mid-swing. Placing his hands above his head, Hit released a K-beam in both hands to speed himself up. The assassin used the blast of ki to aim both his feet at the top of Vegeta's head and launched himself like a rocket-propelled missile. Vegeta quickly altered his grip and forced Hit's kick to miss. The Saiyan King then continued to wave Hit's body around while the stream of ki faded out and managed to slam the assassin's back into the arena again. Hit coughed up a bit of blood as he tried to force himself free from the Saiyan's grasp. Suddenly, Hit felt Vegeta's tongue put a bit of pressure on him in a strange way. It was like Vegeta could force a reaction from his muscles through his tongue alone, controlling his every move from a simple grasp. Hit quickly began to analyze Vegeta's strange new fighting style and took a deep breath as he froze time the moment Vegeta's grip loosened. Hit quickly pulled out his hand and struck out with everything he had. However, before he could make any ground, the assassin noticed something was off. Vegeta started to feel his mana getting weaker. He then let out a sigh as he said, "Well, I guess this is as far as I can take this match." Vegeta then powered up and suddenly appeared behind Hit. Hit tried to activate his time stop, however, Vegeta broke through his control with pure strength. A powerful chop slammed into the back of the assassin's neck, knocking Hit out in an instant. Vegeta looked over at the shocked audience. He let out a breath of fresh air as he powered down. While he was announced the winner, Vegeta dove into his own consciousness and recalled the Omen form. Once more he successfully tapped into this unique state of mind. His body roared with energy as everyone gasped in surprise. To think he can consciously activate this form, is this some unknown trait of the Saiyans? Whis thought as he stared at Vegeta. Goku looked eager to fight Vegeta when suddenly Kibo sensed something that made his skin drip in a cold sweat. When Vegeta powered back down, he noticed Kibo's reaction and followed his eyes to see the one and only Zeno-chan standing a few feet away. Kibo sensed a deep and profound form of destruction, Tao, surging throughout the All-King of Destruction. The foreign god felt as he was thrown into a black hole. All his attainments in the Tao and laws of destruction now seemed tiny and insignificant in comparison to the being known as Zeno. No, it's as if he is the very embodiment of destruction Tao. Every last fiber of his being is comprised of and constructed from the laws of this universe. Kibo thought as everyone else began to take notice. Zeta Zeta, Zeta Zeta, Zeta Zeta, Zeta 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 Sama. Beerus shouted as he made everyone look over. Hey, who is this guy? Goku asked Whis. He is the Lord of everything, the god above all others, Whis mentioned with a gentle smile. Lord of all? Champa's teeth started to chatter as they flew over to him. The god of destruction started to quiver as they bowed to Zeno. The angels did so as well, only their bow was slightly different. My lord, what brings you here today? Beerus fumbled on his words. This event was held without my consent, so I came here today to give you both a warning, Zeno said with a childlike tone. We are sorry, Beerus said as he lowered his head. Please forgive our transgressions. Champa followed his brother's actions. But you see, as I watched, I found it interesting and fun. So next time we should do this with all the other universes together, Zeno announced. Yes, my lord. Champa and Beerus shouted at the same time as they lowered their heads again. Seriously? Goku shouted as he got in between the two gods of destruction, parting them aside. Goku continued shouting in a cheerful tone, "That sounds awesome. Let's do it." "Goku, don't you dare address." Beerus was about to tell Goku off when Zeno interrupted him. "Shut up. Do you want me to destroy you?" Zeno threatened with a monotone pitch in his voice. The two gods of destruction cowered as they slammed their heads back into the ground, apologizing while shaking like frightened rabbits. Seeing Goku approach the Omni King, his guards got ready to intervene when Zeno held his hand up and said, "Stay put, or else." The guards gulped as they bowed and backed off. Zeno then looked at Goku's held-out hand as he said, "Let's make it soon too. Promise me," Goku said with sparkles in his eyes. For a second, Zeno was speechless. His guards frowned, and veins appeared on their foreheads. Beerus held his hands out, shaking in fear as he said, "Goku, don't." Zeno smiled and trotted over to Goku. He held out his hand and shook Goku's before saying, "Yes, it's a promise." Beerus and Champa let out a breath of relief, and as the two separated, Zeno waved his hands in the air and said, "Bye for now, I have to go." As Zeno took his guard's hands, Goku waved his hands side to side as he said, "I look forward to meeting you again. Bye." Zeno's guards said their goodbyes and teleported away. Everyone besides Goku felt like a huge weight was lifted from their chests as they all let out a sigh of relief at the same time. Beerus suddenly glared at Goku and yelled out, "Goku, you fool! The Lord of All is a supreme existence. He could obliterate all of creation if you so much as upset him." "What? For real?" Goku shouted with a look of disbelief. Vegeta chuckled and said, "Yes, but what difference does that make to us? We didn't do anything exactly wrong. His intentions were pure and without malicious intent." Goku lifted his brow up as he thought with a pondering expression. "Yeah, Vegeta's right." "You two," Beerus ground his teeth. Vados and Whis chuckled. "What interesting mortals you have in your universe," Findes complimented Whis. "Thank you, sister," Whis said as he looked over to the contestants of Universe 6. "Your universe has a wealth of potential as well." Vados nodded her head as she set her eyes on Kibber. "Well then I guess you guys win the wish." Champa, just realizing he lost, fell down in defeat. "It's not fair. I want a rematch." The contestants were getting to know each other while the gods of destruction did their brotherly spat skit. Vegeta walked up to Cabba and chatted with him about the differences in their worlds. Kibo went around with a piece of paper, talking to everyone from the winning team. "Well, kid, this is goodbye for now." Vegeta held out his hand. Cabba nodded his head and said, "Please come visit someday." Vegeta nodded his head. "I give my word to visit your planet during the future." Kibo walked up to Vegeta and said, "Vegeta, what's your wish?" Vegeta smiled as he saw what Kiba was doing. "Ha ha, okay, my wish is to give Kiba the knowledge of ki and spirit control, but to do it in a way that allows him to experience it through training. Also, improve the strength of the training grounds made by my wishes to be able to keep up with the growth of our strength. So, a planned training program for ki and spirit control, and a better timeless training grounds." Kibo dotted down Vegeta's wish as he ran over to Piccolo. After gathering up all of Team 7's wishes, Kibo ran over to Beerus and said, "Hey, write your wish down and ask the dragon to grant everyone's wishes here." Beerus looked at the wish list and said, "Not a bad idea." His eyes scrolled over the already written wishes. Goku, training equipment that can always withstand his needs. It has to be similar to the gravity room Bulma developed, as well as a fridge that could produce infinite meals that had been cooked by Kibo and Goku's beloved wife Chi-Chi. Vegeta, give the Saiyan Kiba from Universe 6 a training routine to teach him perfect spirit and ki control. Also to enhance both Salada's and Earth's timeless training grounds to the dragon's fullest capabilities. This includes the energy, durability, and aid to the beings that train inside it. Naruto, an unlimited supply of the universe's greatest, most tasty ramen noodles. It must be in the form of a spatial ring and must contain at least 10,000 different types of ramen flavors. Kibo, To rid himself of the Otsutsuki Patriarch's marker on his karma and to improve his righteous Lord's slaughtering array to the peak of what the dragon was capable of. This would allow him to not only remove the identification and tracking curse, but by improving the specific array he was thinking of, it should allow him to avoid being marked in the same manner in the future. Piccolo, to learn of the dragon god Zalama's methods of training, Beerus wrote down his wish and rolled the paper up into a scroll. The angels then revealed that the asteroid was the last Super Dragon Ball and summoned Super Shenron. The massive golden dragon appeared as entire galaxies were being created around his entire body. Kaibo took this chance to grab a handful of powerful stars and galaxies and transport them into his inner world. The power rolling off of them was just too tempting, not to snag a few. After filling up his tiny universe of space, Kibo felt that he had gained a great boon to help him develop a certain technique. After the dragon quickly swallowed the group, they were brought to Super Shenron's inner body. A smaller version of the godly dragon appeared before them, and he spoke in the sacred language of the gods. "What is your wish?" Beerus held up the piece of paper and said, "Make everything on this wish list come true. Pretty please." The dragon's eyes glowed and said, "Your wish is granted." Beerus burned the paper and then everyone separated before they boarded their rides back to their homes. Along the way, Vados was surprised to see that their Earth had suddenly returned to its former glory. "My lord, it appears that Earths and its humans have been returned to the point before it was destroyed. There are no evil souls residing on the planet either. They even have a culture that can create delicious meals." "What did you say?" Champa said with wide eyes. "Perhaps Lord Beerus wished for this," Vados said with a smile on her face. Champa crossed his arms and said, "That guy." He then smiled before he said, "What a jerk, always annoying me." On the way back with Vegeta's crew, Goku shouted, "This is going to be great, a fight between all the universes." Goku's eyes then turned to Vegeta and said, "But first, let's fight, Vegeta." Vegeta held his hand out and said, "Sorry, Goku. Transforming into the half-state has exhausted me mentally. Currently, at most, I can transform into that state twice a day." Goku crossed his arms, then we'll fight later. Goku then turned to Beerus. "Hey, Beerus, let's fight." "No, I'm tired and going to bed when I get back." Beerus shouted, "Your act with the Lord of All took 10 years off my life." "You're immortal," Goku said, making him pause as Whis chuckled in the distance. Vegeta fell down and actually started to nod off on Bulma's lap. Bulma chuckled and said, "It was a good fight, honey." Vegeta smiled and didn't wake up until the next day. His body needed time to acclimate to the power he absorbed from the Omen state. When he got up the next day, he felt that his body was even stronger than before. Goku spent the entire time since he got back training with Whis in the timeless training grounds. So Vegeta got mad about him trying to rush ahead of him. Goku also managed to get a pill from Kibo to restore his bone age and renew his inner potential. Using his new training room that was placed inside his house residing in the timeless training grounds, Goku had started to push his strength to new limits. With the small amount of time Vegeta rested, Goku spent more than 5 years inside his training room. When he came out, he was a completely different fighter. His eyes gleamed with the same glowing dark yellow irises as Vegeta's. Goku sensed Vegeta had woken up and rushed to his side. He saw Vegeta sitting on top of his house with his eyes closed. Goku landed next to him and saw Vegeta was trying to calm his entire body. Goku sat next to him and said, "Hey Vegeta, how have you been?" Vegeta smiled and said, "I'm fine, Kakarot." "Why are you here?" "I thought we could spar and train for the tournament," Goku replied. Vegeta stood up and said, "Sure, but I'm wondering if we should invite Kaibo to join." Goku nodded his head. "That's a great idea." Vegeta then flew over Kibo's house and invited him into the timeless training grounds. Kibo nodded his head and decided to join them for a while. In the meantime, their kids and friends went off to journey out in the vast universe. Goten, Trunks, and Kibo's youngest, Kazu and Sheena, managed to find a way to travel to the neighboring universe and decided to check out the Saiyan Vegeta fought with. A few weeks after the Universal Tournament, Vegeta and the rest would exit from the timeless training grounds, leagues stronger than before. Vegeta had a smirk on his face as if he had accomplished something great. Goku showed a similar smile while Kibo seemed to be on the verge of a breakthrough in his martial intent mastery. They returned to Bulma's place and saw Beerus was there enjoying the meal. Vegeta and Goku immediately got in on the meal. While they chatted, Beerus looked them over and said, "Good, it appears you made some headway towards becoming future gods of destructions. Do either of you want to take up the mantle when Beerus retires?" Whis asked before eating a plate of eggs and bacon. Goku and Vegeta lifted up a brow and said, "Nah, that's boring." At the same time, Vegeta paused as he looked at Goku and thought, "Been spending too much time with this moron, I'm starting to talk like him." Beerus chuckled before saying, "Don't mock it, there are lots of perks to becoming a god of destruction. For one, you live forever and get to sleep and eat when and whatever you want. All you have to do is destroy a couple of useless planets every once in a while." "That sounds terrible. Why would I want to do something so wicked?" Goku said as he chowed down. "Kakarot, you should know that it's deeper than that. The gods of destruction are like gardeners. If you let a bunch of rotten leaves remain on your vegetables that you like to grow, what do you think would happen to the plant itself?" Vegeta said as he ate an entire plate of rice and meat. "It rots or speeds disease." "I think I get it. Still, destroying entire planets, can't you just destroy the wicked ones?" Goku asked as he pulled apart a pork leg. "What if the whole planet has no innocent beings on it?" Whis said as he ate some pudding. Goku lifted a brow in confusion. "That can't happen, can it? I mean, isn't that kind of impossible?" Whis shook his head before he continued. "I understand your point, Goku, but you must know that although it is rare, it sometimes happens. If it's not that specific scenario, the other reason a god of destruction destroys is that their most evil actions would spread and infect the rest of the universe. More often you'll be destroying such evils in such a manner individually as you described. However, even with that, every once in a while you will have to destroy an entire planet," Beerus said before he ate a whole cow leg. Goku continued to stuff his face as he said, "Still, it's not for me. I don't think I could pass judgment like that and destroy a whole planet." Kibo smiled and said, "Without destruction, how can true creation take place? Life will renew itself. Do you not use compost to feed the earth? Once a planet is destroyed, I'm sure the Kais will make another to replace it." Just as Whis nodded his head and was about to confirm Kibo's statement, suddenly a familiar time ship appeared out of the sky near the crowd. As everyone gathered around it, Bulma noticed that an older Goten was unconscious and wounded. Vegeta had Bulma pop the time machine's hatch before healing the teenager with a spell. Adult Goten opened his eyes and saw Vegeta floating before him. With a look of rage on his face, future Goten transformed into a true Super Saiyan God Red and charged towards Vegeta in anger. Vegeta frowned as he grabbed the boy's fist and said, "Calm down, boy." Goten paused as he saw everyone around him looking puzzled. He saw Goku and cried out, "Dad, you're alive." Goku pointed to himself and said, "Wait, am I dead? Wait, no, I still feel alive." Vegeta looked at Goten and said, "Calm down, you moron. He's obviously talking about your future self. You came from the alternate timeline, right?" "I made it." Goten flew over to Goku and hugged him. Tears formed around his eyes, and he suddenly felt lightheaded before he collapsed from sheer mental exhaustion. Goku patted the future Goten's back and said, "I wonder what happened." Beerus pointed a finger at Bulma and Goten and said, "Hey, that boy's not from this timeline, explain." Vegeta gripped his fist as he thought, "That bastard, it has to be him again." Vegeta had a good idea of what happened. However, to make sure he was right, he stood by Goku and Goten's side while Bulma called Chi-Chi. Currently, the real Goten was traversing Universe 6 with Trunks and the second generation of Team 7. The group was adventuring at planet Sadala to see what the Saiyans of Universe 6 were capable of, and more. Vegeta was beginning to lose his patience when Beerus complained to Bulma about creating a time machine. While Vegeta was thinking about what his opponent was planning, their argument grew loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. To stop their spat, Vegeta spoke up. It's a machine that can travel to parallel timelines. It doesn't actually change the future. It still creates new timelines that shouldn't exist, Beerus growled. Beerus was about to continue when Bulma held out her finger and said, "And I said, I didn't create it. Another version of me did. So bring your complaints to her." "That won't be possible." Goten's voice echoed out as he woke up. Chi-Chi was watching over him and looked at Goten with worry as she asked, "So you came from the future?" Goten grabbed his mum and hugged her. "Mum." Chi-Chi smiled and patted him on the back as the boy sobbed. Vegeta scratched his head, not knowing what to say, when Goku walked over and placed his hand on the future version of his son's shoulder. "What happened, son?" Bulma brought Goten a glass of water, and everyone waited until he calmed down. He then looked around and began to explain what happened after Trunks returned to his timeline. After leaving a resurrected future in peace, the timeline turned into a very different future from what Vegeta was familiar with. Goku and Chi-Chi had their youths restored and their lives back. It wasn't long until Goten was born. After experiencing the apocalypse and watching everyone she loved dying at the hands of the androids, Chi-Chi had no problem with Goten becoming a fighter. Trunks ended up becoming something like what Gohan was to Trunks. A friend, teacher, and role model for him to aspire to be like. The future timeline flew by and everyone continued to grow stronger by the day. Future Vegeta calmed down quite a bit and became a more wholesome person. He did his best to be a good husband to the woman that waited for him all these years. In a time of peace, Vegeta slowly started to show a softer side. Of course, that led to Bulla being born shortly after Goten. Everything was going great, that was, until one day Buu came along. When Vegeta transformed into his Majin form during the Buu saga, the darkness he was combating was exploited. The once prideful Saiyan prince allowed himself to be controlled by Babidi. The power he gained allowed him to access the god form, but a strange and different branch altogether. The energy was pitch black and his hair was crimson rather than the light fire-red color of Super Saiyan God. It took Trunks transforming into a true Super Saiyan God to calm Vegeta down. However, it wasn't as easy as one would expect when dealing with Vegeta. The fight between Vegeta's evil God transformation and Trunks' true God transformation accidentally fueled Buu's revival. Shen, who tried to reseal Majin Buu, was caught and absorbed by the Majin before he could finish. When that happened, Buu changed into a strange, thin and bluish version of himself with a white mohawk. The battle was intense, but both Buu and the Kaioshins stored within the Majin died after being defeated by true Super Saiyan God Trunks. Without his Majin to protect him, Babidi died shortly thereafter, releasing the spell from Vegeta's body. This event caused Vegeta to conquer his past and put his wicked deeds behind him once and for all. Unfortunately, their peace didn't last long. Goten explained how years after the Buu event, Vegeta suddenly attacked everyone. He started by killing Trunks and Bulma while their backs were turned. Vegeta gripped his fists. Bulma managed to escape, but that thing can't be Vegeta. I refuse to believe that the man I know is capable of this. Especially not after he tried so hard to change himself. "I'm not the type to give up the things I've earned," Vegeta said as he looked at Goten. "Rest assured, Goten, you are correct in your assumptions. That man is not the Vegeta you knew." Goten's eyes widened as he said, "For real?" Bulma always said the same thing. "Man, I miss her." Vegeta's eyes widened in worry, thinking that the worst had come to pass. Bulma's did so as well. However, the blue-haired pseudo-Saiyan shook off her fears and said, "Is she okay?" Goten nodded his head. "She's fine, a real good fighter. Of course, she's smart too, certainly takes after her mum. It took a while, but Bulma was able to remake the fuel needed to power the machine. Once again, your daughter really is super smart." Bulma's mouth drew into a curve before she asked, "Say, Goten, what do you think of Bulma?" Goten showed a goofy grin as he rubbed the back of his head and said, "She's the best." Chi-Chi and Bulma pulled each other over to the corner and began whispering. Seeing their reactions, Goten, Vegeta, and Goku blinked cluelessly with question marks over their heads. Kibo lifted a brow as if he had an idea of what was going on. However, he found Vegeta and Goku's dense attitudes to be rather funny. So Kibo decided to keep it to himself. Getting back to the matter at hand, Vegeta turned to Beerus and said, "We need to pay a visit to Universe 10's Lord of Lords." "You suspect a Kai?" Whis asked with a suspicious glare. Seeing that he couldn't just explain how he knew what was happening, Vegeta turned to Kibo and threw him under the bus. "This guy's wife is a prophet. I asked her for some advice once or twice." Kibo rolled his eyes and covered for Vegeta. "Yep, she said that this universe's next threat would come from a Lord of Lords in training." Whis smiled as he said, "Oh, is that true?" "You could ask the Oracle Fish if you guys don't believe me," Kibo said as he turned back to Goten. Goten looked at him and had no idea who Kibo was. In response to his clueless expression, Kibo quickly introduced himself as a visitor from another reality. Goten was shocked, to say the least. He then stood up and asked Vegeta and Goku to return and help them. Vegeta, as named by Buller, is horrifyingly powerful. Nothing we did could defeat him. Goten's story continued as he informed them of what happened after Vegeta killed his family. The whole world turned into a battlefield. Vegeta's power was nothing at first. However, the more they fought, the stronger he became. The Body Snatcher eventually gained access to the Super and Uzeru transformations after only a few fights. Once the imposter's hair and fur turned rose-colored, he managed to destroy most of the Zeti fighters. Buller and the rest of the survivors are currently in hiding. However, Earth wasn't safe. It took them building bases off-world to finally get a bit of peace. Without Zamasu trying to kill them daily, they managed to buy enough time so they can think about what their next actions should be. Thanks to something Buller made, they were able to keep their energy hidden, even when they were using ki. Goten was able to teleport around, gathering information and searching for some way to beat their foe. However, eventually, their base on Mars was found by not Vegeta, but an evil version of Goku. Goten and Buller did everything they could to run. They eventually fought off Negaku and hid inside a barren asteroid out in the middle of empty space. Just like before, the Z-fighters were whittled down to just a handful of survivors. Buller and Goten, they managed to get a hold of Bulma's time machine and her notes on how to make the fuel. In order to top off the time machine, Goten and Buller had to return to Earth. They quickly went back to Capsule Corp and ended up running into the Resistance. However, their presence caught the attention of the two evil versions of Goku and Vegeta. Goten was forced inside Bulma's old lab, while Buller transformed into a true Super Saiyan God Blue to fight off against them, both of them. It brought them precious time. He hated leaving her to fight alone, so Goten rushed through the building and retrieved the package. Once Goten made sure she and the remaining humans gathered together, he used instant transmission to teleport them to another safe zone. The possessed bodies of Goku and Vegeta charged towards them, but Buller shot off a solar flare, blinding them as she said, "Hurry, get the time machine ready." Goten nodded his head and threw the capsule down. He then transformed into a true Super Saiyan Blue and flew in to fight the two Zamazes. Bulma refueled the time machine, while Goten did his best to buy more time. With a powerful gut punch, he separated Goku from Vegeta. Goten then grabbed Vegeta's arm and threw him far into the distance. Evil Goku reappeared and tried to shot a blast at Buller. However, Goten blocked the attack and took the explosion. Buller was worried, but did her best to focus on the task at hand. As soon as she finished, she turned around and said, Goten shooting off a full-powered Super Kamehameha. The teenage Saiyan even dipped into using up his own life force to empower the technique. The blast hit the two villains in the back and allowed Buller to throw him in the time machine and escape. Before he passed out, Goten barely managed to hit the navigation device and sent himself back to this timeline. The crowd was quiet. Vegeta took a while to process the information before he looked at the teenager and said, "You did good, Goten. Don't punish yourself for Buller's actions. As for your drained life force, we have some things here that can take care of that." Goten could see the rage on Vegeta's face and started to figure out why he was so mad. "Vegeta, what do you think happened?" Goten asked, knowing he would get an accurate answer. "I think someone made a very smart wish, and that someone helped this fellow make that wish." Vegeta looked up and thought of the only one who could make such a massive change to the timeline. It has to be Fu's doing. Vegeta's suspicions were correct. He suspected that something was off when the Demon King didn't show up at the Universal Tournament. He knew that the God of All would be there, so of course he wouldn't show up. 4 had his sights set on the Kaioshin in training known as Zamasu. Just like in the original story, Zamasu saw the tournament on GodTube as his plan began to take motion. Only he was after Vegeta's body this time. After collecting the Super Dragon Balls, Zamasu was about to make his wish when Fu showed up. The Demon King then offered him a pair of unique black earrings and some advice on how to word his wish. In exchange for his help, Zamasu had to agree to fight for Fu for one day in the future. Fu then disappeared just as mysteriously as he came. Zamasu grinned as he made the wish to steal both the bodies of Vegeta and Goku from Mirror Trunk's future timeline. Not only were the bodies of the 2 most powerful Saiyans stolen, the bodies the 2 Zamasus inhabited were granted Xeno-God-level regeneration. Any damage inflicted on them only made them stronger. Vegeta's blood was boiling under his skin. He wanted to grab Fu and strangle the life out of him for even daring to think of stealing his body. Future version or not, no one messes with Vegeta. However, this was his own fault. Vegeta knew he should have made his move against Zamasu ages ago, but he was so weak Vegeta didn't even think that it mattered. Vegeta originally thought that by making the future Z-Warriors stronger, it would keep Shin from dying in that timeline. He had hoped that the power he gave the future timeline would be enough to handle anything. Yet, seeing future Goten here and in the situation that he was in made Vegeta think of how foolish he was. Vegeta turned to Goku and said, "I'll leave the part of taking care of those fools to you, Kakarot. They think that this rose form is enough to handle anything. Show them how wrong they truly are." Goku smiled as he happily placed his hands behind his head and said, "What about you? I'm going with Beerus to end the one who started this. I don't know about you, but I don't like the idea of someone other than us being in control of our bodies. I also assume Beerus enjoys living," Vegeta said, as he stepped over towards Whis. "Wait, have you guys listened to me at all? We need to train before we return. Trunks told me how you guys were like the strongest versions of ourselves. I need to get stronger so I can fix it." Goten pleaded. Vegeta smiled and flew up slightly as he said, "Goten, come fight me." Goten nodded his head. He could see what Vegeta was after and flew off after him. As they stared at each other a few dozen feet above Capsule Corp, Goten powered up to True Super Saiyan God Red and said, "I'm not going to hold back." Vegeta did the same and powered up to TSSGR. When Goten attacked with a barrage of punches and kicks, Vegeta noticed that future Goten was indeed quite strong. However, the King of all Saiyans hardly broke a sweat while he blocked all of Goten's attacks in rapid succession. Goten then quickly transformed into True Super Saiyan God Blue, and as he was seconds away from landing a punch, his fist blew past Vegeta's guard, however. The punch hit nothing. Goten was stunned as his eyes lost track of Vegeta's body. Vegeta teleported and appeared behind Goten before he flicked him in the back of the head. Without any resistance, Goten flew face down towards the ground and was caught by Goku moments before impact. "Get back in there, son," Goku cheered on his future son. Goten gave his father a warm look before he sighed and said, "Easy for you to say. Even in this form, I'm on the losing end against the previous." "Yeah, but I can sense you holding something back. Now get in there and show me what you can do," Goku said with a smile as he tossed Goten back up into the fight. Goten floated back up to Vegeta and said, "Okay, so I haven't perfected the form. I can barely hold it for a minute." Goten then powered up again, his hair turned purple, and took the Super Saiyan 2 hairstyle. Vegeta smiled as Goten used a ×100 Kaioken technique and smashed into Vegeta with all his might. Vegeta judged his power against the future version and raised his hand before saying, "Kokoro Ken ×10. Vegeta caught Goten's fist effortlessly and said, "Just so you know, True Super Saiyan God Purple isn't the end." Vegeta then powered up to True Super Saiyan God Green before saying, "True Super Saiyan God Purple is just the beginning. Even now, there are higher forms that Kakarot and I are trying to achieve. Tell me, do you think we can defeat those 2 body snatchers?" Goten gulped. The power he sensed was leagues above what he sensed from Zamasu. Goten nodded his head as he looked to Goku and asked, "Can Dad do that too?" "Actually, this time I was the first to achieve the next stage of our godly evolution," Goku bragged, grinning while putting one foot behind his leg and his hands behind his head. Vegeta grunted. "You got lucky. If I spent more time on my Saiyan transformation ability than my Ultra Instinct training, then I would have accessed it first." Goku laughed as he said, "Oh, come on, Vegeta. Relax. It didn't take you that long to gain the new form too." Vegeta rolled his eyes, returned his attention to Goten as he crossed his arms, and asked, "Well, do you need to see more?" "No, but I want to," Goten shouted. Vegeta laughed and decided to give the boy a show. He started to power up and created a powerful storm of energy that swept throughout the area. Vegeta's body slimmed down slightly. His hair turned into a vibrant orange color that reminded Kaiba of the orange hair Gogeta had when he fought Omega Shenron. The Saiyan King's hairstyle took on their base hairstyle, while his fur was a much darker shade of orange, and his tail waved around behind him as his power leaked out into the universe. Lastly, he opened his eyes, revealing solid bronze irises with dark black pupils. Vegeta looked at Goten and asked in a cocky tone, "Well now, does this impress you?" Even though he could sense God Ki, Goten couldn't sense Vegeta's energy no matter how hard he attempted to. Beerus coughed out what he was drinking as he stared at Vegeta in surprise. He then observed Vegeta's new form in admiration as he spoke, "Tell me, what form is that?" "True Super Saiyan God Orange, its approximate initial modifier, is around 5 times stronger than True Super Saiyan God Green, and it has the ability to constantly break through out power limits. While we maintain this form, our power constantly grows both in multiplier and base power," Vegeta announced as he powered down. "Hey, what should I do?" Kiba asked, pointing to himself. Vegeta looked at him and thought for a second before saying, "You should join Kakarot in case anything goes wrong." Kiba nodded his head as he approached Goten before saying, "Cool, that works out just fine for me." Goten powered up the machine while Vegeta and Beerus went off with Whis to take care of their current-day Zamasu problem. With Bulma aiding them in the refueling process, future Goten had some time to spend with his past family and take in the sights. He chatted with his mom and family that he didn't have in his timeline, but he was happy to meet the other members of the Sun family. Future Goten shook his head as he held in his tears. Although it stung future Goten that his parents were gone, he knew that he still had a chance to bring them back if they could defeat Mega Goku and Vegeta. Seeing the mood he was in, Bulma smiled as she made a suggestion. "Why don't you use the Dragon Balls from Salada? You could wish to recreate their exact bodies and revive them." Goten thanked Bulma as she handed over the Dragon Radar. He headed off to planet Salada and got to work. Within a single hour, managed to locate and retrieve all the Dragon Balls. He then flew to Luna and placed the grapefruit-sized Dragon Balls in a spot far away from civilization. When Reimagined was summoned, future Goten gasped at its might appearance. "Can you undo all the destruction caused by Zamasu from this Goten's timeline and revive everyone?" future Goten asked. "I can do so for everyone, with the exception of Goku and Vegeta. Their bodies were stolen through the use of Super Shenron," Reimagined answered. "I see, then can you recreate their bodies and revive them in those?" Bulma spoke up. "Your wish has been granted." After making his wish, they used the second wish to take everyone from future Goten's Earth and transport them here. With the wishes done, Salada's Dragon Balls became inert and blasted off into the horizon. Standing in front of the billions of Earthlings from the future timeline, Goten jumped into the arms of his loved ones and explained what had happened after their deaths. "How are we going to get back?" Future Vegeta barked at Goten. He was obviously worried about his daughter. "We can use a wish to transport everyone here back with the Earth's Dragon Balls. Until then, you can explore the world that this timeline's Vegeta helped make." Bulma said as she waved at future Vegeta, "Right now you are on Luna. This place is the moon of planet Salada. Above us is the new home planet of the Saiyans." Current-day Vegeta explained. Future Vegeta looked up with wide eyes. His senses were cast over the planet with golden clouds and vibrant blue oceans. You know, your parents are alive down there. I got to meet them earlier. Oh, yeah. Same for you, Dad. The Sun family in this timeline is getting rather big, Cotton informed. Cotton and Trunks had already met Bardock, and now future Goku would too. Vegeta wandered around and saw the glory of the current timeline's Vegeta. He gritted his teeth as he used his senses and found his parents training in the royal palace. Future Vegeta suddenly let a smile escape his permanent scowl. He couldn't help but be impressed with this version of Vegeta. However, he felt just as jealous as well. Future Vegeta shook his head and sighed as he thought, could I have made this my reality too? What is it that is so different between us? Future Vegeta then sensed how powerful everyone was on the planet. There was an actual army of true Super Saiyan gods, red, blue, and purple. Only a few had learned green, but this was all enough to throw future Vegeta through a loop. Bardock was among those who had achieved true Super Saiyan God Green, while current-day Vegeta's father was struggling to achieve mastered true Super Saiyan God Purple. Luckily, his mother didn't disappoint the royal family name and was one of the few Saiyans to achieve true Super Saiyan God Green. While sensing the situation around him, future Vegeta started to wonder if all his talent came from his mother. He flew towards the planet to get a closer look and took a few minutes to explore. Suddenly, future Goku found future Vegeta sitting out on a random plain of grass, thinking about his life. Hey, Vegeta, are you going to fight with some of these guys? This is an invaluable experience, you know. Future Goku questioned as he sat down beside him. Future Vegeta scoffed at Goku and rolled his eyes. Come on, it'll be fun. Imagine how much stronger we can get if we... I don't need them. I'll reach the peak on my own. Future Vegeta interrupted Goku by shouting at the top of his lungs. Future Goku jumped back up and grabbed his ears as he shouted back, "Sheesh, you don't have to yell." Future Vegeta let out a sigh as he sat down with a defeated look on his face and asked, "Why don't you hate me?" Future Goku was puzzled by the question and scratched his head before answering, "I just don't." Future Vegeta grabbed Goku by the scruff of his gi before he spoke in anger. "That's exactly what pisses me off about you." Future Goku looked even more puzzled now. "I don't get it." Future Vegeta let out everything that made frustrated him about future Goku. "How can you learn to forgive like that? How can you just let go of your pride and act so innocent all the time? Why are you always one step ahead of me? Vegeta, I want to be your friend. You're fun to fight, but you take things too far sometimes. All that stuff you're holding in, it's just weighing you down and keeping you from reaching greater heights. So what if I'm a bit stronger than you now? If you focus on that, how much time do you lose training?" Future Goku said as he removed Vegeta's hand from his jade. "You know, you recently started to show real progress. You were living for yourself, and you don't even need to hurt anybody. Think about it. Vegeta, Super Saiyan, was just a legend, and now we're gods. If you hadn't changed your ways, do you think that you could achieve all this?" Future Goku pointed out the obvious. Future Vegeta was a little shocked by being lectured by Goku. His widened eyes and dropped jaw made it all too obvious that he had never seen future Goku this upset before. "I can't help the way I am, and you can't help the way you are, but that doesn't mean we can't be friends," future Goku said as he held out his hand. Future Vegeta's expression was livid as he turned around and said, "I can't call you friend." Goku sighed as he started to float away when Vegeta muttered, "At least not right now. I have a lot to sort through." Goku didn't catch that last bit as Vegeta looked up into the skies of Salada. "Salada? A different name than our home planet, but not a bad change," Vegeta stated before he flew off to join the rest of the group. Meanwhile, this timeline's Vegeta was traversing the stars with Whis and Beerus. It didn't take them long to end up on a lush green planet of the Kais for Universe 10. Vegeta followed Beerus patiently until they met the Elder Kai of that world. Vegeta was introduced to Gawasu when Beerus brought up the trainee he was bringing up. Ubasu seemed puzzled, but did as the god of destruction ordered. He brought Zamasu to meet with him. Vegeta gave a nod and said, "Yeah, it's him all right." Whis then proceeded to ask him a series of questions, such as, where had he been recently? Why did he go to Lord Zuno's planet, asking about the Dragon Balls? And why did he ask if they could allow one to inhabit another's body? Zamasu tried to explain away the incidents. However, when Whis asked if he had ever used the time rings, Zamasu looked like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Gomasu retrieved the box of time rings and opened it to show that Zamasu had indeed created a whole new timeline. Beerus didn't even give Zamasu a few seconds to get off his gods are perfects and mortals are flawed, therefore they shouldn't exist speech before Beerus said, "You're wrong, sick in the head, and will be destroyed now." Hakai. Beerus Hakayed Zamasu into nothing before the god of destruction turned to Gawasu and berated him for not finding a better candidate to take his place. Gogasu apologized repeatedly and bowed several times in front of Beerus and Whis. Seeing that they were taking their sweet time, Vegeta hurried them by saying, "We don't have time for this. If we return now, I might be able to go with them to deal with the future timeline." Unfortunately, destiny had other things in store for Vegeta. Kibo and current timeline Goku were ready to leave and weren't going to wait around forever. On top of that, Whis received a summons from the Grand Priest, and unfortunately, Goku was unavailable, so Vegeta was forced to go in his place. As a representative of their universe, Vegeta made sure to act as proper as he could. When he met with the High Priest, Vegeta gave a bow as he said, "It's an honor to meet you." The High Priest looked at Vegeta and smiled. "So you're the Saiyan that managed to tap into Ultra Instinct. I must say I'm impressed. Has it occurred of you to become Universe 7's next god of destruction?" Beerus's eyes widened in fear while Vegeta shook his head and said, "Sorry, but I'm not interested in the job. I plan to surpass that power on my own." The Grand Priest shook his head. "Shame, you would have made an excellent god of destruction." Whis nodded his head. "Tell me about I can't count how many times I've propositioned the Saiyans to become one." "You did what?" Beerus almost growled in the presence of the High Priest. The Grand Priest chuckled at their behavior before he led them to the Hall of the Omni King and was met by the Omni Guards. Zeno looked at Vegeta and said, "This isn't Goku." Vegeta bowed slightly. It wasn't over the top like the gods of destruction, but just a simple nod of the head. "My apologies, my friend was busy at the moment. The one you call Goku, is currently dealing with a problem that requires his utmost attention. So I have come here in his stead." Vegeta then held out his hand and said, "I am Vegeta, Goku's friend." "You dare act so pompously," and the shouts of the guards were interrupted by Zeno's threatening tone of voice. "Silence, or I'll destroy you." The guards hushed up like frightened rabbits before Zeno walked over to Vegeta and said, "You're a friend of Goku's." Vegeta nodded his head. "Yes, and since you're Goku's friend, that makes you my friend as well." "Goku and I are friends? So that makes us friends?" Zeno said with a happy expression on his face. "Anyone Kakarot is friends with are certainly good enough to be friends with me," Vegeta said as he shook Zeno's hands. "Kakarot?" Zeno questioned with a confused expression. Yes, Kakarot is Goku's Saiyan name. Goku is the name the Earthling that raised him gave him." Vegeta shook Zeno's hand. Once again, the guards were interrupted. "Quiet, do you want me to erase you?" Zeno sent out a flare of his destruction key. Vegeta gulped as Zeno returned to talking to him. "Since we're friends, we should play." Vegeta nodded his head. "Well, about that, I kind of want to help Goku out with something first, and I can bring a friend back here to play with you as much as you want." "Really? Promise?" Zeno's asked as his eyes sparkled. Vegeta nodded his head and said, "I promise." Luckily, Vegeta had made a good impression on the Omni King, so Zeno looked at him with a smile and said, Good, then I have something for you." Vegeta looked at the buzzer and acted puzzled as he held it up to the light. "What is it?" "Press this side and you'll come to me. Press this side and they can move to your location. I was planning on giving it to Goku, but since you're here, you can take it instead," Zeno said as he passed the button over. Vegeta thanked him and was off. Hopefully he wouldn't have to use it. For future Trunks to lose his entire world, that was just too sad of an ending. Kaibo, Goten, and Goku had returned to the future timeline. After stepping out of the time machine, Goku saw the destruction and sighed before saying, "Wow, evil me is a real jerk." Didn't we just wish to restore the damage, and he's gone and destroyed everything again? Goten patted his back. He isn't you, Dad. He's just an evil man who stole your body. Goku smiled as he patted Goten's head. All right, kid, now to take care of those baddies so he can never hurt anyone again. Goten flew up slightly and said, It's good to have you here. It's nice to have backup. Too bad it won't make a difference. The sound of Goku's voice called out. Tell me, Goten, did you think that, I see you brought help. The voice of Nega Vegeta called out. Goku and Kibo looked over to see Nega Goku and Nega Vegeta laughing as they stared at them like prey. Is that a time machine, perhaps? Nega Goku said, tilting his head. Kibo nodded to Goten as he turned the ship back into a capsule. Goku looked at the two flying in front of himself. He then raised his voice as he said, So you are the ones who stole mine and Vegeta's bodies? Yes, I am, Zamasu Vegeta declared with a smile on his face. I see you got help from the past. However, it won't make a difference. How can mere mortals defeat a god? Zamasu Goku said as he powered up. Goku whistled, Yep, that's my body, all right. It's so powerful. Kibo laughed and said, Well, it won't be the first time I've killed immortals. Kibo cracked his neck. Immortals? Goku shouted in confusion. There is an air of eternity around them. Be careful, Goku. They probably wished for immortality or indestructible bodies, Kibo casually mentioned. Goku nodded his head and cracked his knuckles before saying, I see. Well, nothing we can do about that. We'll just have to beat them down until they can't get back up. Kibo chuckled and said, No need. Once we beat them down, I can seal them inside a prison capable of holding them. A mere mortal dares to threaten me. Zamasu Vegeta said as he chuckled in an eerie manner. Shut your filthy mouth, you are in the presence of a real god. Kibo fluxed his god essence into the sky. Nega Vegeta and Nega Goku were shocked as they felt the energy rush over them. How can this be possible? A human god? What sacrilege is this? The Zamasu pair questioned in shock. Kibo growled as he said, So what? That's what humans are supposed to do. It's only the natural order for one to evolve, to grow and blossom into godhood if given the opportunity. Even this reality has a method for humans to become even stronger than the gods. Your twisted ideals are flawed. Zamasu. Kibo shouted out his name to make him shake. Goku chuckled in response to Zamasu's reaction and said, That's right. We know your identity, you dirty body snatcher. I imagine Beerus and Vegeta have already dispatched your original self. This means Goku and Vegeta get to keep their bodies in a universe you distortions made. Kiba taunted the Zamasus with laughter in his voice. Who the hell are you? Zamasu yelled out. Kibo smiled and flipped Zamasu off as he said, Just another guy who can't stand your thought process. Goku nodded his head as he crossed his arms. Yep, and we're here to take you down. If you're smart enough to figure out that I'm immortal, what makes you think you can do anything to us? The two Zamasus said in tandem. No sooner than those words left Zamasu's mouth, Kibo appeared in front of Zamasu Vegeta, transformed into superhuman god purple form, and kicked his head off clear off his shoulders. Goku appeared in front of Zamasu Goku and punched him in the gut so hard that his stomach exploded out of his back. I'm so glad you guys didn't wish to become numb to pain as well, Kibo said as he looked at the karmic sin surrounding the two body snatchers. Karmic sin? I am a god. Sin is for mortals. The two Zamasus shouted in anger. What are you talking about? Goku asked. I have the ability to see karmic sins and virtues. To get to such a disgusting aura, they must have killed every mortal in this universe, Kibo explained. When Kibo told Goku this, the orange G-wearing Saiyan looked at Zamasu like a monster and powered up to true Super Saiyan God Purple. Unlike in the canon series of events, Goku didn't hold back. He attacked to kill. With a frighteningly powerful kick to Zamasu Goku's torso, Goku ripped his evil counterpart's body in half. The two villains screamed in pain as their wounds recovered. Out of nowhere, Nega Vegeta's neck suddenly had a line of magic connecting his neck and head that quickly pulled them back together. Nega Goku's recovery was just as fast as his waist pulled itself back together. The villains looked at Kibo and Goku in horror as just one attack managed to make them sense the depth of their power. How can mortals achieve such strength? The two shouted in disbelief. Before they could act, Kibo and Goku attacked the evil Kais by punching them in the face at the same time and shouting, "Shut up," in unison. The punch from Goku and Kibo sent the two fake Saiyans flying through the air like bullets, breaking the sound barrier. After smashing through a few buildings, Zamasu Goku and Nega Vegeta powered up to their true Super Saiyan Rose forms and tried to frighten their opponents. Goku and Kibo, however, paid no attention to their rise in power. Without giving the villains any time to think, they struck out and landed a direct punch on the faces of the two foolish Kaikis. Kibo was fully equipped and in his superhuman purple mode. His power was no less than Goku's or Vegeta at the moment. He moved so quickly that Zamasu couldn't see him at all. Only the sensation of a sword cleaving through his body made him shake with fear. While Kibai bisected Zamasu Vegeta, Goku was unleashing the full fury of true Super Saiyan God Purple. Punch after punch, kick after kick, Goku remained leagues above Zamasu Goku in both power and skill. A powerful punch to Zamasu Goku's gut sent him keeling over, breathless and in pain. Being cut into tiny pieces only to heal the damage caused Zamasu Vegeta to cry out in constant agony. Kibo then held his sword in the air and said, "Destructive meteor fall." As his sword flew down at Zamasu Vegeta, the villain could sense a powerful law of destruction beginning to overwhelm him. The blade passed through Zamasu Vegeta's skull and ran down the end of his spine, once more bisecting him as he yelled out in pain. Zamasu Goku appeared beside him in order to aid his other self when Goku teleported before him and unleashed a barrage of powerful melee blows, beating the living tar out of his evil counterpart. Before they could completely heal, Kibo and Goku kicked them into each other, forcing their bodies to collide. The two Zamasus noticed that holes and scars covering their bodies were a serious issue. Before they could heal the damage, Goku and Kibo appeared in front of them and blasted them with a point-blank combined Kamehameha. The two villains took the full brunt of the blow and flew back into the air with broken and ragged bodies. With a flash of intense speed, Kibo appeared behind Nega Goku, while Goku appeared in front of Nega Vegeta. Once more, the heroes kicked the two Zamasus through the air and teleported to hit them repeatedly into the distance. Goku and Kibo passed the villains back and forth with vicious and lift-threatening attacks. However, to Goten, it looked like they were playing a game of ping-pong. In response to all the damage that they were taking, the two Zamasus shouted in unison, "Damn you bastards, you hack!" Before the Kais could finish their insult, Kibo cut their throats and performed a spinning kick to the side of Nega Goku's head. Goku appeared in front of them and hit Nega Vegeta in the stomach with a slap that could turn a planet into dust. Kibo then cut them both down from the chest to hip, while Goku blasted them with a full-power Super Kamehameha. "Hey, our teamwork's not half bad," Kibo said, as he swung the blood from his sword.
Wow.
"Your attacks are even faster than last time. We should spar again," Goku said as he gushed over Kibo's skill with a sword. "Enough." The Zamasus shot back through the surrounding wreckage with a pinkish and black barrier around his body. "You call that a barrier?" Kibo shouted as his blade severed them in half again. Goku then appeared in front of them as Kibo was at their back. Pulling out their best techniques, the two warriors attacked at the same time. As the two powered up a fierce blast of energy, they shouted out, "Super Spiral Kamehameha times God-slaying art. All in one." Kibo's sword beam and Goku's blast converged with the two fake Saiyans at the center of the cataclysmic explosion. The villains shouted out in pain again as their bodies were torn to shreds. Kibo didn't feel like waiting around as he began to make dozens of hand signs. Suddenly, black ink began to form out from the bottom of his feet as he made 4 more clones appear around the two Zamasus in a pentagon formation. "God-sealing art, 5-element seal," Kibo shouted, as the remains of the two Zamasus were slowly pulling themselves back together. Kibo continued to weave a massive cube of energy that was slowly becoming more and more solid. The earth, air, lightning, water, and fire turned into massive sealing symbols that surround the cube of energy. When Kibo finished making his last hand sign, the elemental symbols slammed into the surface of the cube, glowing brightly as they fully sealed the two kayas inside a massive 8-foot metallic cube. Goku smiled as he patted the box. "Well, that was easy. Neat technique. Can you teach me it?" Kiba chuckled as he nodded his head and said, "I'm sure you can figure it out. After all, because of the wish, Vegeta should have a copy of this technique in his library." Goku laughed before he said, "Come on, it's a lot easier when you have a teacher explain." Kibo was about to agree when he felt something from the box beginning to shake. Kibo frowned as he felt the power inside the seal surge and said, "Impossible. Crap! The Patera earrings." Both Goku and Kibo felt a sinister power leaking out of the 5-element seal like crazy. Kibo quickly transformed into his god mode, but it was too late. Before Kibo could reinforce his seal, a black and violet energy escaped Kibo's cube before causing a massive explosion that turned everything in a 30-kilometer radius into dust. Kibo waved the smoke away, revealing a fused Zamasu Vegeta standing a few feet away from them. "I see now this is ultimate power," Zamasu declared as his hairstyle changed to the Super Saiyan 2 style, and the color changed into a deep violet color that gleamed like steel. Kibo could feel a deep sense of dread coming from Zamasu's new body. Even Goku showed a serious expression as he said, "This could be bad." Kiba raised a brow and said, "You think?" He then took a long, hard look at the Patara earrings. Not because he was interested in them, but because he could feel the negative energy feeding into Zamasu's new form. "Why are they purple? Aren't they supposed to be green?" Goku questioned as he followed Kibo's line of sight. Thu's plan was wicked indeed. He had already gathered a few Patara from evil Kais and altered it with the power of Shadow Shenron. The wish not only made the fusion permanent, but it would imbue the owner with negative energy the longer the new individual born from the fusion wore it. Goku shook his head. "It doesn't matter how strong you become through fusion." Goku powered up to his new true Super Saiyan God orange form. Once Zamasu felt Goku's power surge, he frowned. "What form is this?" Kibo cracked his knuckles. Although he hadn't managed to achieve superhuman God Green, once he activated his Platinum God mode, his 3 stars of Panga, and Beast God Asura avatar, his powers skyrocketed just like Goku's. Zamasu looked at them like they were the lowest of low. "Worms, how dare you imitate gods with your revolting energy?" Kibo shook his head before shouting back in rage, "For the last time, I am a full-blown god. Unlike Goku here, who needs to use his Saiyan genes to become one, I surpassed my worldly tribulations and earned my divinity. I've had enough of hearing about your superiority complex and retarded goals. Tell me, Zamasu, do you know how to take care of a forest?" Zamasu gave Kibo a foolish look. "Of course, I'm a Kai." Kaibo stopped him short. "All mortals are seeds that can grow into Kais in training like yourself, should tend to planets like a gardener. In order to take care of a forest, occasionally one may need to chop a tree down to keep the forest from being blanketed in complete shade. The gardener is supposed to remove dead trees and tender so the forest doesn't burn, maybe even remove a couple of diseased trees so they don't infect the remaining greenery. If you kill off all the trees, the forest will disappear forever." Kibo pointed around at the destruction. "Your one job as a Kai was to watch over and report if a planet was deemed unworthy to survive. If mortals are the forest sprouted from the seeds sown by the god of creation, and you pull out all the roots, what do you think will happen to this universe?" Zamasu frowned while Goku showed a clueless expression. "What are you doing?" Goku sent a telepathic message. "Buying time for Goten to get the time machine ready." Kibo responded with a telepathic message of his own. Kibo had already sent Goten off to get the time machine ready in a different location, while a disguised clone of Kibo was currently taking his place. Another of his clones was off trying to find the asteroid Goten pointed him toward. Zamasu seemed utterly annoyed. "You say the same things as those foolish elder Kais. That's because they are right. This universe has a flow, laws that keep it from falling apart. Your job was to keep mortals from stagnating." Kabo then pointed to the sky and said, "All things under heaven are born through competitive means. From the moment the first lightning bolt accelerated organic evolution till we are conceived through natural selection, it is a mortal duty to struggle, survive, and grow. Kibo then pointed to the dirt beneath his feet. From the simplest of organisms, they attempt to swallow the elements from their surroundings to become something greater. It is as I said, mortals are nothing more than bottom-feeding leeches. Zamasu decided to argue back. Yes, life feeds off its environment, but mortals can do more than just that. They can grow and evolve, give back to their environment, plant new seeds in place of things they take, create new wonders that can improve the welfare and health of every living thing. But all of this takes time for them mature. Goku was surprised to see Zamasu wavering. Kibo smiled and thought that maybe the only reason he was even bothering to converse with him was because Kibo was an actual god. You are not the god of destruction. Only they have the right to destroy. You were a Kai, born to protect and teach, yet you couldn't even do that. Goku berated the fallen Kai. Kaibo then gave a mocking expression. His clones sent telepathic messages, telling the main body that he found the asteroid Bulla was on, and that Goten finished prepping the time machine. With a smile on his face, Kibo pointed a finger at Nega Vegeta and said, "You have to be the worst god in existence. Why else would the universe itself demand your destruction?" Zamasu frowned and grew angry at the foreign god. Shut up, shut up, shut up. I am the only god left in this timeline, therefore my ideals are now the new law. Goku suddenly felt Zamasu powering up to unholy levels of energy. Geez, is our fusion really that unfair? Kibo looked over at Goku and shook his head and thought, yes, how could Vegeta or Gogeta not be considered a broken character? Through sheer might, they could destroy the boundaries of their own reality and enter realms not known. Kibo then looked off into the distant hillside where the real Goten was. Noticing the teenager suddenly nodding his head, Goku quickly teleported over and grabbed Goten's shoulder while Kibo and the clone lashed out with his most powerful attacks. God-slaying art, all in one. God-slaying art, one in all. The surge of sword beams only lasted for the time it took for a single wave of Zamasu's hand. As the intense sword energy detonated around Zamasu, Goten took the chance to teleport them to the last refuge for all remaining mortals in their universe. While on the asteroid in the middle of the Sol System's Kuiper Belt, the clone fighting with Zamasu was destroyed by a simple stabbing spear fist. Kibo acted quickly. Along with the asteroid, he pulled both Bola and any of the remaining survivors into his inner world. When that was done, Kibo then teleported back to the time machine alongside Goku and Goten. However, before they could make their escape, Zamasu had appeared before them and blasted a massive ki wave that threatened to destroy them all. Kibo sighed and created a clone in the pilot's seat. Once he pushed Goten inside the time machine, the clone activated the navigation system and started the process to send them back. Goku took one last look at his future kid and said, "We'll hold him off, you get Vegeta back here before he kills us, okay?" Kibo charged out using all his strength. He activated his almighty domain and shouted for Goku to join him. Goku waved goodbye to Goten's disappearing figure before he turned around and started to fight against the all-powerful Zamasu. Zamasu shook his head. "A pointless endeavor. You inferior beings are far below me." Kibo's almighty domain started to sap away his power and make both himself and Goku stronger. However, Zamasu didn't seem to mind all that much. The wish from Super Shenron was constantly filling his body with vitality and energy. Kibo kicked out while trying to cut Zamasu's head off, while Goku punched at Zamasu's spine. In return, Zamasu raised his arm, blocking both Kibo's and Goku's assault with a simple motion. The blade clashed against his skin, but didn't make so much as a scratch. Even Goku's punch did little to make the evil Kai budge. Kibo's follow-up kick landed against Zamasu's elbow blow. The force from the impact knocked Kibo back while Zamasu spun around quickly and grabbed Goku's neck. The villain then slung Goku towards Kibo in an attempt to smash them together. Kibo barely avoided hitting Goku as he leapt over him and slashed at Zamasu's arm. "Spatial render," Kibo shouted as he cut through the space between Zamasu's atoms, severing his arm. Zamasu let out a loud yell as he kicked Goku away from him. The detached forearm loosened its grip while Goku flew into the distance and smacked into a distant building. Kibo then swung his blade again as Zamasu reattached his arm and covered his body in kitty. At the moment of contact, a loud explosion went off as Kibo's blade slammed into Zamasu's forearm. Kibo felt the shockwave travel through his body as the ki barrier around Zamasu exploded and forced Kibo to fly back while coughing up blood. As Kibo repaired his organs with his Gate of Healing, Goku flew out from the recently destroyed building and narrowly avoided Kibo being thrown at him. Goku then spun while he kicked out towards Zamasu's head. Zamasu dodged the spinning kick and punched Goku's knee from the side. The force from the blow made Goku's body face him before Zamasu unleashed another punch. The evil Kai's fist slammed into Goku's gut so hard that Goku coughed up a mouthful of blood and air before being shot into the ground at high speed. At that moment, Kibo appeared behind Zamasu and cut his sword down towards his neck. God-slaying art spatial destroyer. The pitch-black blade passed through Zamasu's body, tearing it apart like a gamma knife. The sword energy tore into the fallen Kai's flesh, covering it in open wounds. Kaibo then threw out a bag of pills and blasted them into a cloud of dust that fell on Zamasu's quickly recovering body. After Zamasu fully recovered, he moved to attack, but suddenly felt drowsy and experienced an awkward sense of displacement. Poison? What kind of poison can affect a god? Zamasu thought as his heart quaked in fear. Kibo smiled and said, "Yep, I may not be able to kill you, but weakening and slowing your body's regeneration with my poisonous pills should put you to sleep for a few minutes." As Kibo saw the anger on Zamasu's face, he changed his assessment of the strength of his poison as he thought, maybe a few seconds, and not minutes. Well, no time to wait. Kibo then grabbed Goku and teleported to a different location before pulling him inside his inner world. By this time, Goten had returned to the past timeline. The future Goten then got out of the ship with Kibo's clone beside him. He didn't even get a chance to call for help when the clone disappeared in a puff of smoke and was replaced by both Kibo's real body and Goku. Once they appeared, Goku looked at Kibo with a look of surprise on his face. "Wow, where was that? How did we get back? Was that a real dragon? All those strong guys in there, are they your friends? Can I fight them?" Kibo smiled as he said, "My inner world is connected to all of my shadow clones. No matter where or when they are, I can use my inner world to swap places with them." Goku powered down as he said, "Neat. So what now?" Kibo shook his head before he answered Goku's question. "What do we do next?" "We wait for Vegeta to return and go back after you two fuse. Once we corner Zamasu, I'll use my strongest sealing technique to do away with him good. Of course, I'll need the help of my wives." Kibo then took off in the direction of his home while Goku asked Bulma to contact Vegeta when she had the chance. Before she could do anything, Goku sensed Vegeta quickly approaching planet Earth. "Never mind," Goku shouted as he jumped up and flew off towards Vegeta's location. Bulma rolled her eyes and thought, "Typical Goku." Goku floated outside of Earth's atmosphere before he saw a beam of light hastily approaching his position. Goku waved down Whis and shouted out, "Hee! Over here!" Whis quickly spotted Goku and stopped next to him. The first thing they noticed was the blood on Goku's torn and trademarked orange gird. They then saw that Goku's body was covered with fresh wounds, cuts, broken bones, gashes, and had haggard breathing. Vegeta frowned as he said, "What happened?" Goku quickly filled everyone in on what happened. While he spoke, Vegeta felt his fury beginning to build as he learned of the changes Funa made to the timeline. When Vegeta heard Kibo's plan, he ground his teeth in anger before he said, "Fine, I'll fuse with you. Even I'm not stupid enough to believe we can defeat our fused evil counterparts without doing so ourselves." "That's great, Vegeta. Now we can beat that jerk once and for all." Goku cheered as Vegeta healed his wounds and restored his stamina. Vegeta flew down with Goku and met up with Kibo and his wives. "Sorry to bother you with this," Vegeta said as he gave a quick bow to Kibo and his wives. Shion gave a quick nod before she said, "It's no trouble, Vegeta. From what Kibo has told us, this Zamasu is bad news. Sealing him is something we can indeed do, but we need you to weaken him first. We'll put him away for good, Karen followed up as she pumped her fist. Kibo smiled at the responses from his wives before he said, "Well, what are you waiting for? Fuse already." Vegeta and Goku nodded their heads and performed a fusion dance that would give them 2 hours as Gogeta. As they finished their dance, their combined power surged into the sky and shook the nearby galaxies. "Such incredible power," Karin said with wide eyes. "It far surpasses our own," Shuon mentioned. Kibo nodded his head. "Yep, this fusion is no joke." Gogeta landed back on the ground, turned to Future Goten, and gave him a thumbs up before he said, "Well, this time we are going to win for sure." Goten felt the massive power of Gogeta flowing over the surface of the planet. Daha Gogeta. "Thank you. This is what family is for," Gada commented before he pointed to Kaibo and said, "Now let me in that inner world. The next time I show my face it will be to destroy that Zamasu." Kibo laughed as he pulled Gogeta and his wives into his inner world. The limit for the time machine could only fit 3 people. This way, Gogeta and Kibo's wives didn't have to feel cramped or hang on the outside of the ship when they passed through space and time. After Goten took them back to his timeline, hundreds of miles away from the place they fought, merged Zamasu, a small rock suddenly transformed into Kibo, revealing it was a clone before it swapped places with the main body. Kibo noticed that Zamasu was still loitering around on Earth, which meant that the villains hadn't yet discovered the resurrection of the universe's life forms. Kibo then grinned as he powered up, purposely alerting his enemy. A few hundred miles away, Zamasu, who was drinking a cup of tea in the distance, suddenly frowned and said, "He's back?" Zamasu didn't pause as he got up and flew off in Kibo's direction. When he arrived in the middle of the destroyed city, he saw Kibo looking at him with a confident smirk. "So, you returned? I must say you're rather foolish to come back here alone," Zamasu Vegeta said with a grin. Kibo shook his finger and replied by saying, "I'm not alone," Kibo announced before his wives appeared beside him. "It will be different from before. I promise we'll seal you up for good this time." Kibo chuckled as Zamasu studied the god energy rippling off Karin and Shien. "More mortal pretending to be gods? Where do you freaks keep coming from?" Zamasu growled. "I see. This is the piece of shit that killed an entire universe." Karin cracked her knuckles. Disgusting, Shion's eyes glowed as she glared scornfully at the fused being. "You took the words right out of my mouth," Zamasu replied, staring at Shion with a smirk. "I hope you like being tossed into the world of void, because that's where I'm tossing your ass when we're done here," Kibo said, with a wrathful look that would scare a Buddha. Zamasu boldly laughed as he stared at Kibo with a mocking expression and said, "A mere mortal thinks he can stop me with my current power. I'm even stronger than a god of destruction." Kibo shook his head with a disappointed expression and sighed before he stated, "How many times do I have to say this? I'm not—" "He's a god, not a mortal, you buffoon." The sound of Gogeta's voice echoed out as he appeared behind Zamasu. Before Zamasu could turn around, Gogeta slapped his hands over Zamasu's ears, shattering his eardrums with a mighty thunderclap. Zamasu screamed in pain as he turned around to punch Gogeta. However, Gogeta was in his true Super Saiyan God Orange form. He easily blocked Zamasu's fist and crushed the bones with a tight squeeze. Zamasu tried to overpower and push Gogeta's hand aside, only to feel like a helpless child as Gogeta kicked him and stretched out his gut. As he coughed up a mouthful of air, blood, and saliva, Zamasu glared at Gogeta in pain before shouting, "Who are you?" Gogeta then grinned and said, "You don't recognize this handsome mug?" Zamasu pondered for a second and realized that Gogeta and his new form were oddly similar in appearance. Quickly figuring out what was happening, Zamasu only grew more confused as he didn't see the Potara earrings on his opponent. How did you fuse?" Gogeta punched Zamasu dozens of times in a fraction of a second, causing massive sonic booms to shoot out from the point of impact. Zamasu felt each blow put a dent on his skin that took much longer to heal than it should have. Gogeta figured out that as long as he avoided a lethal blow, the wounds wouldn't recover as quickly. "Damn you mortals, constantly mimicking gods." Whatever method you use to fuse will never be equal to a god's. Zamasu cried out as Gogeta hit him with a spinning kick to the side. Kibo smiled as he started to set up a massive array of seals. His wives joined him and stood apart as their array markings formed a triangle. Black ink-like kanji characters painted the ground in a complex array of spell formations. Dozens of glyphs poured out from the trio's godly essence and continued to surround everything in a 500-kilometer radius. While Gogeta continued to wail on Zamasu, a sealing jutsu that was so big it could be seen from space formed beneath their feet. Gogeta's assault was brutal. 10 punches to the gut, 4 hooks to the chin, 3 kicks that went from low to high, and finally he lowered his heel on Zamasu's skull. With a powerful dropkick to the top of Zamasu's head, it sent the villain flying through the earth's crust and out the other side. Zamasu cried out in pain as he flew back and shouted, "I will kill you all!" Suddenly, the negative energy from the evil Patera earrings continued to pour into his body until something forced a change in his kid. The evil energy was infecting all of Zamasu's Saiyan cells. A dark red and black energy began to wrap around his body as his physique began to grow. Fur began to grow across Zamasu's face and covered his entire body in pitch-black hairs. His height jumped up to 10 feet as his muscles expanded until his entire body was in the shape of a tiny Uzaru. Gogeta appeared behind him and sent out a powerful punch that threatened to destroy the planet. In response to the surge of power, the Uzaru then turned around and punched out with all of his strength. A single supermassive blast of air shook the planet as their fists collided. Gogeta was forcefully flung back by tens of feet when he saw Zamasu charging at him like a wild animal. With his mind enraged, Zamasu sent out a powerful forward-stomping kick at his opponent's chest. Gogeta easily slipped past his leg with a fluidity that could only resemble the swift movements of flowing water and punched a hole in Zamasu's face. Zamasu's body fell to the ground, but before the fused being hit the earth, his body regenerated. The evil Kaioshin then flew back up to Gogeta and punched out with all of his strength. Gogeta threw his arms back and raised his foot above his head. Before the punch landed, Gogeta dropped his foot and heel kicked his Zamasu's shoulder in a downward arc. As Zamasu felt the pain of his flesh being torn through, his arm fell off before he looked at Gogeta in horror. Gogeta continued to follow through with the momentum gained from his dropkick and front-flipped while bringing his heel on down Zamasu for a second blow. This time, Gogeta targeted the center of the villain's nose. As the back of Gogeta's heel slammed into Zamasu's face, the villain fell back towards the ground and created a large plume of smoke and debris that shot into the clouds. Gogeta powered up and shouted, "Grand Kaikakoro Ken times 1000, 5-element final Kamehameha." A giant beam of energy shot out of Gogeta's hands and engulfed Zamasu's entire body. Gogeta smiled as he lowered his hands. "Come on, get up. I know you're not dead." Zamasu yelled out in great pain, sending his ki in an upward spiral. The evil Kai was focusing all his killing intent towards Gogeta. The negative energy grew inside Zamasu's stolen body by leaps and bounds, tearing away the clouds and spilling into the depths of space. When the Uzaru form began to fade, Zamasu's appearance became far less ape-like, while his body started to compress back down to regular height. "I'll kill all of you, every last dirty mortal," Zamasu shouted as his energy became even more warped. Kibo, who was watching in the distance, frowned as he saw Zamasu's skin turn pitch black. The villain's hair spiked out until it reached his waist and turned into a deep violet color. The arua surrounding him was a mix of crimson and black. It radiated with fearsome and wicked power, while small black sparks blinked in and out of the area around him. His fur took the appearance of an SS-4 and his eyes turned pitch black. "Evil Saiyan God form," Goten shouted as he looked at Zamasu's new form. "Evil Saiyan God?" Kibo asked with his eyebrow raised. "Yes, that's the same transformation Uncle Vegeta gained access to while he was under the effects of Babidi's spell. It took both Goku and Trunks fusing before they finally defeated him," Goten said as he pointed to Zamasu's violet form. "That energy surrounding him is corrosive in nature. It eats through ki, like a hot knife on butter. Goten growled as he recalled how he felt when Vegeta's evil ki corrupted his own. Kibo's expression became strained as he sensed a crazy amount of energy leaking from Zamasu's body. He then focused his senses and said, "The evil ki is destroying his body?" Goten gulped. "Yes, and because his body is immortal, it's in a state of constant destruction and restoration. We didn't fight Vegeta to just stop him, it was to save his life as well. And thus, he gained Zenkai boosts like crazy." "I thought Saiyans couldn't gain Zenkais through self-inflicted wounds," Kiba said with a raised voice. "Yes, that's true, but can you call this self-inflicted? The damage is coming through an external force. Those earrings, if I'm not wrong," Goten explained. "Gogeta, finish this. Bring him over and hold him down for a while," Kibo shouted out. Zamasu suddenly sent off a large ki blast to destroy not only the planet, but the entire solar system as well. Kibo then quickly made a few dozen hand signs before he placed his palms on top of the earth. At the same time, Gogeta slapped Zamasu's hand and sent out a punch towards his face while powering up a ki blast with his other hand. Zamasu backed off slightly before he punched Gogeta's fist and created a ki scythe with his open hand. Swinging down with all his strength, Zamasu cut at the blast Gogeta released with his pitch-black energy scythe. The blast split into two and randomly shot off into the depths of space, while the power from their colliding fists caused hurricane-force winds to shoot all across the surface of Earth, destroying everything that the concussive wave touched. Gogeta then opened his hand and grabbed Zamasu's fist before pulling him forward to kick his gut inward. However, Zamasu tapped Gogeta's leg with his foot and stepped off of him before he tried to backflip kick Gogeta in the head. Gogeta felt his power surge as he used his ki to stop Zamasu's attack. Zamasu growled in anger as he felt Gogeta's power continuously outmatch his own. Before the villain could act, Gogeta grabbed his ankle and yanked him closer before powering up a point-blank Kamehameha. Zamasu growled in frustration as he defended against the blast and felt his skin and bone torched by the heat. Even in his new form, Zamasu Vegeta was still lagging behind Gogeta. While Zamasu was continuously getting stronger through Zenkais, Gogeta was gaining power through another method. The true Super Saiyan God Orange represents completion. Unlike Super Saiyan God Green, which used the overflowing power to increase their base form and has a higher Zenkai booster, Super Saiyan God Orange simply increased both his base power and multiplier rapidly through combat. While the energy from his Super Saiyan God Orange continued to grow, it was clear that Gogeta's overwhelming advantage would continue to outpace Zamasu's gains. The TSSGO had the overwhelming might of God Ki, the control to sustain the form almost permanently, the perfect balance of Ki and physique, constant increases in both base power and multiplier, and most of all, for some reason, mastering skills and techniques in this form comes extremely easy. It was a true limit-breaker form. While Gogeta still had a firm grasp on Zamasu's ankle, the villain continued to try and attack Gogeta with a flurry of blows and ki blast. However, every one of his attacks was dodged by the narrowest of margins. When he was about to be hit, Zamasu panicked and swung out with his violet ki scythe, forcing Gogeta to let go. Zamasu continued to swing his scythe wildly while Gogeta was still toying with him. Like a mouse chasing a cat, Gogeta dodged Zamasu's flurry of scythe swings with minimal effort. As Gogeta then dashed forward through the gaps in the villain's attack and grabbed Zamasu's neck. Using all of his strength, Gogeta caused his kete to suddenly surge in the form of a pillar beneath Zamasu's feet. As the energy engulfing Zamasu tore his skin apart, Gogeta threw him as hard as he could towards the center of Kibo's ceiling array. Zamasu stopped in midair and flew back towards Gogeta with all of his power. In response, Gogeta threw his hands into the air and waved them both down at Zamasu's location as he shouted, "Meteor shower!" Millions of tiny needle-like ki beams rained down from above and blasted through Zamasu's body, filling him full of holes and turning the evil Kai into a Swiss cheese impression. Zamasu's body was violently thrown towards Kiba's array when Gogeta then powered up another powerful blast as he shouted, "Stardust Breaker!" Zamasu's face paled as he sensed the power of the purifying energy rippling off of the sphere forming in Gogeta's palm. Gogeta then gripped his fist while the Stardust Breaker receded into his body. Gogeta's entire body emanated a purifying aura as he punched out and said, "Godly Uzaru Dragon's Fist." A scaled version of the Uzaru appeared behind Gogeta and punched out alongside him. The manifestation of Godly Kai glittered like the Stardust Breaker as the Dragon Ape roared and punched out. When the overlapped image plunged into Zamasu's body, the blast created a giant burst of light that covered the entire Milky Way in less than a second. In that second, the purification effect from the Stardust Breaker caused negative energy in Zamasu's earrings to collapse, shattering them as Zamasu Vegeta crashed into the ground. As the smoke cleared, it was clear that Zamasu was no more. Gogeta used his Stardust Breaker alongside Spirit Fission to destroy the earrings and defuse the body snatchers. Zamasu Vegeta and Nega Goku reappeared and yelled out in frustration as they got ready to fly back towards Gogeta and fight. However, the sounds of chains grinding together shook the two Kais out of their stupors. Nega Vegeta and Nega Goku suddenly saw thick golden chains piercing up through the ground before they wrapped around their bodies. Their ki started to feel heavy while their body grew groggy. As the Zamasu twins discovered that the chains were sealing up more than their bodies, they began to panic. The villains wanted to yell out for it to stop, but it was no use. The pair of body snatchers felt robbed of their sense of touch, scent, sight, taste, hearing. Even their ability to speak had been forcefully repressed by the sealing effects of the golden chains. "God sealing art! 12 elements seal!" Kibo shouted, as the 12 sacred elements gathered around the two Zamasus. Zamasu Vegeta and Zamasu Goku struggled to retaliate against the powerful jutsu, but the might of 3 powerful gods from another reality suppressed all their efforts. Nega Vegeta used what was left of his senses to look over and around his surroundings. Before he completely lost all 6 senses, Zamasu Vegeta realized that Zamasu Goku's hand was somehow still fused to his own. He then looked at the fused section to try and recombine into his Vegeta form. Incredible. I can't believe the fusion is still taking place after the loss of the Potara. Is it because the two Zamasus share the same soul? Kibo questioned as Zamasu's energy started to return even stronger than before. However, before Zamasu could completely recover, Gogeta then landed next to Kibo and said, "Need any help?" Kibo smiled and responded with a cheerful expression, "Sure, just lend us your energy to help us reinforce the seal." Gogeta nodded his head as he created 2 split bodies and placed his hands on Kibo, Shion and Karin's backs. The energy flowed into them like a tidal wave, making the trio of otherworldly gods grow stronger, while Zamasu only felt his restraints grow stronger. Before Zamasu could register what was happening, the seal suddenly entombed him inside a pitch-black and empty void. The villain was left disabled and unable to feel or express himself. A large and metallic pyramid formed around Zamasu's body as the array started to glow even more intensely. "I hope he rots for all eternity," Karin mumbled. Shion nodded her head as she said, "Let's make sure he never hurts anyone again." Agreed. Kibo nodded his head. Kibo and his wives clasped their hands together and smiled as Kibo shouted, "Consolidate!" Their combined energy condensed into a tiny black solid pyramid covered with mystical and profound markings. The heroes could finally relax. Letting out a sigh, Kibo threw his hands into the air, taking a victorious pose before breathing in deep and shouting, "It's done." Vegeta and Goku undid their fusion and stood over the seal in awe. While they were admiring the complexity of the god art, Goku smiled as he held the 3-inch pyramid and said, "So that's it." Kibo smiled back and nodded his head before he answered, "Yes, we did it." Suddenly, without any warning, a beam of energy shot through Goku's back and exited out the front of his chest. Goku yelled as he grabbed his chest in surprise and fell to one knee. Vegeta quickly cast a full heal on his body, and as Goku recovered, they turned to see Zamasu Vegeta standing in the distance with his finger still smoking from the heat of the blast. Goku coughed up a mouthful of blood as the wound began to close. "Hack, what the hell is going on?" Vegeta grunted as he said, "How? With his lungs fully healed, Goku lifted his head and said, "It must be that arm we lopped off during the fight." Kibo looked around and discovered that Zamasu's detached arm was indeed missing. "Crap!" Kibo shouted as he pushed his power to the limits. Shion and Karin did the same as Kibo shouted, "Go, fuse again. We'll buy you time." When Kibo finished speaking, another copy of Zamasu Vegeta appeared in front of everyone and sent them all flying with a series of punches and kicks. Everyone felt that the energy radiating from these Zamasus was hundreds of times stronger than the Nega Vegeta they faced moments ago. As everyone regained their balance, a few dozen Zamasus appeared next to them and laughed before speaking in unison, "Even if a drop of my blood exists, it can fully regenerate my body. How magnificent." Kibo frowned and said, "Well then, two can play at that game." Shunin, Karin, and Kibo created hundreds of clones and built an army around Goku and Vegeta. "Fuse!" Kibo shouted, as the two Saiyans nodded and began to perform the fusion dance. Zamasu, on the other hand, wasn't having any of that. He teleported past the otherworldly god's defenses and kicked both Vegeta and Goku into the air. Kibo quickly teleported over and grabbed onto Zamasu's leg. In his full power mode, he swung the villain around before releasing him like a bowling ball that slammed into his copies. Shion waved her hand, creating an avatar of a goddess that had armor on depicting the mythical beasts she had as her sole partner. The avatar was skin-tight like Kibo's. It had samurai-type armor with a celestial dress mixed in with its style. A single translucent scarf wrapped around her arms and around her back, and angel wings flowed out from her back. Shion attacked with open palms, causing massive blasts of destructive energy that turned a group of the Zamasus into a pile of sand. However, seconds later, they reformed into thousands of new Zamasus. Karin's avatar was in the shape of a crimson Buddha with 1,000 arms. Her depiction was one of Avalokitesvara from Indian Buddhism. It wore celestial-looking segmented armor that had depictions of her 10 god beasts. She had 4 pairs of wings, razor-sharp claws, a third eye, and around her arms and legs were golden chains that slithered around like living snakes. Karin sent out her chains and pierced through hundreds of Zamasu copies before she began sealing them individually. But the Zamasu copies stopped her attempts, overpowering and shattering the chains with their bare fists. Shorin, Kibo, and Karin gathered around Vegeta and Goku once more. As they tried to stop the assault, Zamasu laughed in their face as he shot out a storm of God-Ki beams that destroyed the clone army with ease. Vegeta coughed up a mouthful of blood as he noticed the hole in his gut. Goku wasn't in any better condition. The happy-go-lucky Saiyan's chest was punctured and bleeding profusely. Kibo and Karin fought up close and relied on sealing arts, while Shion backed them up and empowered them through her lunar god arts. The heroes from the Naruto-verse continued to fight, but they were both outnumbered and completely outpowered. Vegeta wiped his mouth and said, "I've had enough of this, sorry Trunks, I couldn't stop him." Vegeta pulled out a small button and flipped it around before saying, "Everyone, get to the time machine." Kibai saw the switch and didn't even wait. As quickly as he could, Kibai grabbed his wives and Goten and stored them inside his inner world before teleporting far away. "You think you can run from me? Nothing can stop my Zero Mortals plan." Zamasu spoke with a gleeful expression. "Who said anything about running?" Vegeta responded as he tapped the Xeno button in his hand. Zamasu was about to taunt Vegeta. However, what happened next made him sweat with intense fear. Xeno appeared above Vegeta and Goku while Kibo and the rest warmed up the time machine's engine. When Goku saw Zeno appear, he figured out what Vegeta was planning and laughed as he waved his hands while shouting, "Zeno-chan." "Huh, where am I?" Zeno said as he looked around. Goku flew up to him and hugged him. "Zeno-chan, it's good to see you again. We need your help. This bad guy destroyed this entire universe." Goku pointed to Zamasu, who was literally shaking in his boots. "Who are you?" Zeno questioned as he looked around. "It's me, Goku, your friend, remember?" Goku exclaimed as he pointed at his face. "Friend?" Zeno tilted his head as he smiled before he asked, "You're my friend?" Goku nodded his head in affirmation when Vegeta appeared beside him. He's a Xeno from a different timeline. Goku, this one hasn't met you yet. Oh, ha. That's right, Goku said while he rubbed the back of his head. Vegeta cut in front of Goku and gave a respectful bow before he said, "It is good to see you, Omni King. I'm sorry to have summoned you in this manner, but one of your Kaioshiins has gone mad. Not only has he destroyed all the mortals in this universe, but he has slain all of the known gods. We tried to stop him and have used the Dragon Balls to bring everyone back, but he still wishes to destroy them again." Vegeta then pointed to the Zamasu copies and continued speaking, "I plead that you spare this universe and only destroy all remnants of Zamasu. Please destroy the one known as Zamasu while sparing the universe," Goku followed up. Zeno tilted his head and stared at Zamasu, who currently looked like he was about to crap his pants. "Yes, I see. That would be the best course of action," Zeno said with a dull tone. Zeno then pointed his finger at Zamasu and said, "You should just disappear." Zamasu wanted to run. However, the moment he turned around, every last one of his copies started to erode into dust. "No, I was so close. Damn you mortals to hell." Zamasu screamed in agony as he writhed on the ground. When Zamasu let out his final death wail, Vegeta smiled as he noticed the universe was still intact. Goku and Vegeta thanked Zeno before Goten flew by and said, "I will begin to gather the Dragon Balls." Kibo suddenly appeared next to Vegeta and said, "Well, that was different." Vegeta sighed, "I'm glad it worked out. If I hadn't specified what he had to destroy, I'm afraid the entire universe would have collapsed." Kibo nodded his head in agreement and pulled out a set of Dragon Balls from his universe. Kibo then looked at Vegeta and said, "Don't worry, I got this." After summoning Shenron, Kibo wished to undo all of the destruction at the hands of Zamasu. The second wish was to teleport all of the people originating this universe that had been revived in Vegeta's timeline back to their original location. The third wish was to repair the bodies of and revive all the slain, Kais killed or absorbed by Majin Buu's actions. With this done, the god of destruction revived as well. When the dragon granted Kibo's wishes, Goten stopped in his tracks as he sensed everyone reappearing on a recently restored planet Earth. Goten quickly flew to his family's side and hugged them with tears in his eyes. Future Goku smiled as he patted his son's back. "You did good, son." Future Goten separated just long enough for the two Gokus to stare at one another. Future Goku then held his hand out and said, "So you're me from a different timeline?" Goku nodded his head and shook his counterpart's hand before replying with a simple, "Yep." Then both future Goku and present Goku smiled as they spoke at the same time. "Wanna fight?" Interrupting the two Gokus, future Bola ran in between them and into future Goten's arms before cheerfully crying out, "You did it!" Future Goten blushed as future Vegeta separated the two and said, "Get back, boy." Future Goten laughed awkwardly at future Vegeta's overprotective manner. Present-day Vegeta missed this because he was busy grabbing Goku from his counterpart and dragging him towards the time machine. As present Goku whined about letting him fight, Vegeta turned back to future Vegeta and said, "Don't make us come back here. Protect your universe this time. I'm tired of cleaning up my future self's problems." Future Goku laughed bashfully, while the Prince of Saiyans grumbled with crossed arms. "You, other me, you have the same potential as me, so quit making us look bad," Vegeta said to his counterpart as he closed the hatch. Future Vegeta turned his head with his arms crossed and grunted in response. As they traveled back, Kibo realized that he still had a sealed version of Zamasu in his inner world. "Crap, I should have had Zeno destroy this as well. I can do it now for you." Zeno's voice echoed out from behind them. Everyone turned around to see that the Omni King had followed them inside the time machine without them knowing the wiser. "Zeno-chan," Goku shouted with wide eyes, "what are you doing here? You said we were friends. I've always wanted to play with a friend." Zeno shouted as he threw his hands up. Goku scratched his face. "Well, I have a lot on my shoulders right now. It might be hard for me to come and play." "Are you saying you don't want to play with me?" Zeno said as everyone sensed a threat of deathly ki. Vegeta quickly perked up as he said, No, 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 not at all. Goku here has to spend his time training for a tournament. Did you just call me? Goku's eyes sparkled. Shit! Yeah, but only because Zeno knows you as Goku, Vegeta rolled his eyes. Vegeta then leaned over and whispered a few words to Goku, who immediately smiled before nodding his head up and down. Yeah, how about this, Zeno? I'll bring you a guy you can play with, Goku responded while holding up a finger. Zeno's mood improved as he smiled and asked, Really? Goku nodded his head up and down before he answered, Yeah, just wait until we get back. Vegeta then pointed to the sealed Zamasu and said, Well, will you destroy him? Zeno looked at Vegeta and said, No, I want to play. Vegeta was about to ask again when Kibo held his hand up and stopped him. It's cool, Vegeta. We'll throw him in the Void Realm like we originally planned, Kibo said, not wanting to upset the source of destruction itself. Before Vegeta could respond, the time machine exited out back in Vegeta's original timeline. When they got off the machine, they were all greeted by both a nervous Beerus and a chuckling Whis, who found the situation to be quite amusing. Goku took off with Whis to meet up with the Zeno of this timeline while Beerus took them to the Void Realm to deal with Zamasu. Kibo looked at the seal and said, Well, it's as promised you corrupt fucker. He leaned his arm back and threw out the metallic pyramid into the vast distance like a professional baseball player on the pitching mound. Before they left, Kibo looked over at an empty spot in space and spoke up. Odd. Was it just my imagination? Come on. Hurry up. I hate being in this place. Beerus shouted out suddenly, breaking Kibo's train of thought. Vegeta let out a sigh of relief. Thinking this was over, he walked over to Beerus's ship and returned to their realm. Yet, deep inside the endless void, a particular demon king smiled while he held the pyramid-shaped seal in his hands. That was close. That guy with Vegeta is dangerous. He almost spotted me. Now, to deal with this seal, Fu tried to use his magic to undo the seal to gain a new minion. However, it proved to be too much for him. Getting frustrated, Fu put the sealed Zamasu away and said, I used the Shadow Dragon to deal with the seal then. Fu quickly returned to Purgatory and summoned his dragon. When he made the wish, the Shadow Dragon said something that set him off. I cannot undo the seal. The power keeping Zamasu inside of it is far beyond my capabilities. Fu growled as he gripped his fist around the pyramid and threw it to the ground. As the earth around him shook, Fu shouted in a deeply angered tone, Damn it, so you're telling me that this is nothing more than a paperweight? Master, why don't you wish for the knowledge on how to undo the seal instead? Slug said, as he pointed to his head. Fu smiled and said, That's a great idea. You heard him, Shadow Dragon. Give me the knowledge on how to remove this seal. The Shadow Dragon granted his wish, but his mood didn't improve much. It's going to take that long, Fu shouted before he rubbed his hands through his hair in annoyance. Fu then let out a disappointed sigh and said, Ha! I guess I'll have to start training. Grabbing the seal, Fu returned to his castle while thinking, Just you wait, Vegeta, I'll show a real fight yet. Yeah, I'm going to get so much energy from this, even Lord Zeno himself will be unable to stop me. Meanwhile, at Capsule Corp, Vegeta suddenly let out a sneeze, and as he rubbed his nose, the Saiyan King frowned as he thought, Someone's talking shit about me. It must be Kakarot. What are you talking about? Goku said as he appeared behind Vegeta. Come on, Vegeta. We have to visit Zeno-chan today. They said we need to show the other Omni King what the tournament is going to be like. Vegeta tilted his head. Who else is coming with us? Gohan popped his head out from behind Goku and said, I will, Mr. Vegeta. Vegeta looked at Gohan, and he seemed to be a bit unwilling. What's the matter, boy? Miss your brat already? Vegeta teased with a smirk. Gohan laughed as he scratched the back of his head. Yeah, Pan keeps me busy most days, but I love being a father. Gohan then deflated as his arms sagged down to his knees, while saying, Videl says that Pan is too much of a daddy's girl. She told me to get out of the house for a while. Vegeta chuckled and said, Well, let's go already. We'll get you back before the runt even notices you're gone. Whis stood at the entrance and waited to take them to the Omni King's castle along with Beerus. As they stood in the bright light, their bodies shot across the universe towards the giant jellyfish floating in the ocean of stars. When they arrived, they were greeted by the Grand Priest and taken to a wide-open arena. All of the current gods of destruction had gathered and were chattering with each other when they sensed the Grand Priest enter the room alongside the Omni King. Everyone bowed and greeted the Omni King when the Grand Priest let them stand and said, "I bet you are all wondering why we have summoned you here today." The Grand Priest looked around the room and smiled before he said, "Recently our Lord has become interested in martial arts tournaments. We have decided to hold the Tournament of Power, a competition that will gather the finest warriors from every universe." "A tournament?" one of the Lord of Lords asked in confusion. Beerus, the robotic god of destruction, called out. "Lord Moscow, you mustn't ever say such things in Zeno-sama's presence." Universe 3's Lord of Lords, chided his god of destruction. "Is something the matter?" the High Priest called out. "No, not at all," Ekia nervously replied. "What did he say?" Zeno questioned with a serious tone. "Lord Moscow was just concerned that we have no time to prepare," explained. "Is that a problem?" Zeno questioned. No, Universe 3's Lord of Lords waved his hands around in a defensive manner. "Everything is all right, my lord," Universe 3's Angel Campari said as he stood up. "See," Zeno said with a deadpanned expression. "Lord Moscow now says it is outstanding that we can participate so quickly," Campari said to save his god of destruction. "I knew they'd want it to be as soon as possible," Zeno said next to his future copy. "Phew, that was a close one," said as he breathed a sigh of relief. "It's sometimes necessary to stretch the truth, my dear Lord of Lords," Campari followed up while the two Xenos were quietly chatting amongst themselves. The Grand Priest looked over at the Xenos and tilted his head before asking, "Is something the matter?" "He says he doesn't know what's going on," Zeno explained as he pointed to his future counterpart. "I see. Zeno-sama did indeed come from a future timeline. He doesn't know about it yet." "Oh, I got it," the Grand Priest said as he mulled over an idea. "To help future Zeno here understand, we are going to hold an exhibition match," the Grand Priest announced. "Oh," the Xenos said in unison. "Ha! Right now? Right here?" Goku followed up with sparkles in his eyes. "I'll make an arena for the fight," the Grand Priest said as he snapped his fingers. Suddenly, a large square ring appeared in the center of the Celestial Palace. The platforms everyone was standing on then teleported away to give the ring plenty of space. "Whoa! We got thrown all the way over here," Goku said as he fell on his butt. He wasn't expecting to be moved by teleportation. Vegeta and Kiba almost fell over as well. The two were expecting it and managed to stay upright throughout their sudden movement. However, Kiba was stunned by the Grand Priest's power. He couldn't believe that he wasn't even able to sense the space shifting, let alone feel the Grand Priest's energy coming into contact with his body. Shifting through space without making ripples? Is that even possible? Kiba mumbled to himself while Beerus yelled at Goku for acting like a fool. Without any warning, the Grand Priest looked over everyone in the hall and said, "Now then, my dear gods of destruction, please enter the stage." All of the gods showed shocked expressions before. Ramshi, the god of destruction from the 10th universe, shouted out, "Us, what do you mean?"
Hold on a moment. This tournament of power requires the gods of destruction to participate as well?
Gowasu yelled out next, "You are each from separate universes. It's only natural that you would be representatives for this battle," the Grand Priest explained. "What?" Beerus questioned with wide eyes. "How surprising for us gods of destruction to take part in this fight," Ikrizim, the fastball of a god from Universe 1, mentioned. "This is getting out of hand," Sidra, Universe 9's dwarf god, nervously gritted his teeth. "This is bad. I haven't trained in centuries," Champa cried out. "Yes, you have been avoiding it. Much to my protest," Vedos followed up. "Hurry up," the two Xenos commanded. "Yes, my lord," Sidra called out. Right away, Champa added. All of the gods of destruction landed on the stage and faced each other. Kotila, the god of destruction from Universe 4, was the first to speak up. "My lord Grand Priest, what are the rules for this fight?" Zeno-sama wishes to plan the rest of the event after watching a battle royal. He is also offering a reward for the last one standing, the Grand Priest declared as he floated over the arena. The Grand Priest then cocked his head sidewise slightly, and with an innocent smile, he stared at the gods of destruction as he announced, "Those who refuse to give it their all, by the way, will be terminated according to Lord Zeno's wishes." Everyone looked frightened by the Grand Priest's announcement, while Beerus clicked his teeth and thought, "This is it. That is exactly what makes Zeno-sama so terrifying. Having them all fight? That's madness," Shin shouted in awe. "This is gonna be so cool." Goku's eyes glowed as he waited for the show to get underway. It will be a good reference to see other gods fight. "Maybe I'll learn something," Kibor said as he floated up a bit. "Should be fun," Vegeta commented. Juni, Universe 12's god of destruction, grunted before saying, "I can't let myself be destroyed in a place like this." "I got it. Well, I guess it could be a good chance to discover which of us is the strongest of the god of destruction. Wouldn't you agree, Beerus?" Quaitela commented in a cocky tone. "Why are you always picking fights with me, Quaitela?" Beerus asked with crossed arms. "You lost to me once. I see you still can't accept your loss," Quaitela replied with a haughty appearance. "I lost to you in arm wrestling. I'm not going to lose in hand-to-hand combat," Beerus shouted back in anger. Kaiba snorted and jabbed his elbow into Vegeta's side as he asked, "Hey, Vegeta, do you get the Tom and Jerry reference here?" Vegeta chuckled before saying, "Yeah, I get it. Cats and mice will always be mortal enemies even if they're gods." "Who's Tom and Jerry?" Goku asked. "It's an old cartoon about a cat trying to eat a mouse that is constantly outsmarting him. Lots fighting between the two," Kiba said with a smile. Goku laughed as well before proceeding to cheer for Beerus by shouting, "Good luck, Beerus. Make sure you don't embarrass yourself. You wouldn't want to give cats everywhere a bad name by losing to a mouse." A vein throb on Beerus's furious facial expression as he turned around and gripped his fist while shouting, "Shut up, Goku! Who do you think is responsible for this crap? Why can't you quit being an idiot?" Hearing this event was caused by a single mortal, many gods of destruction stared at Beerus with a look of disapproval. Belmond, the clownish god of destruction from Universe 11, gave Goku a quick look over before asking, "Is that mortal from Universe 7? This nine-tailed fox god, Liqua, scornfully glared at Beerus before asking, "Is he the one responsible for all of this?" "You guys should be thanking him," Kibo said as he appeared on the stage next to Beerus. Whis, who is that man?" the Grand Priest said as he showed interest in Kibo, shocking the other gods in the process. "He's a god from another reality and a close friend of Vegeta," Whis answered. "How interesting to think that a mere mortal has reached the status of true godhood, all without mastering Ultra Instinct no less. I'm curious as to how his reality's power system works," the Grand Priest replied. "Lord Zeno, may I participate in this battle as well?" Kibo spoke up. I don't know," Zeno replied. Kibo scratched his head and thought for a while before saying, "I'll show you something cool if you let me." "Something cool?" future and current day Zeno questioned in unison. Kibo nodded his head and said, "I promise you've never seen anything like this before." "Okay, show us something cool." The Zenas continued to speak in tandem. "Who are you?" Belmon questioned. "I'm Kibo, a god from a foreign reality," Kibo announced as he pulled out his 7-star cauldron and sat down. "What did you mean by we should be thanking Beerus and his mortal?" Liqua followed up with a query of his own. "I'll tell you after the fight," Kibo said before he turned to Zeno and announced, "Lord Zeno, this is an alchemy technique from my home universe. I hope you will be pleased with my performance, because I'm about to show you how a god ascends in another reality." Kibo lit up a strange wood elemental flame and threw it into the cauldron. He continued to pour his godly essence until the azure green fire turned into a liquid-like substance that was sealed inside the 7-star cauldron. Many of the gods and angels looked interested. Even the Grand Priest couldn't help but approve of Kibo's skill. Suddenly, Kibo pulled out countless godly herbs that could only be found in legend: a vial of Bodhi's ambrosia, striped tiger grass, 7-colored phoenix flower petals, azure-scaled fruit roots, and a black ice water tree leaf. All of the individual ingredients shocked the surrounding gods and angels. The energy rippling from them proved that they were godly materials, and potent ones at that. Waving his hands, Kibo crushed the pill ingredients into dust and poured them into the cauldron, one after the other. When each ingredient collided with the wood elemental flames, the smoke that rose from it took the shape of the 4 auspicious beasts. Suddenly, the image of an azure dragon, black tortoise, white tiger, and 7-colored phoenix appeared from out of the cauldron's entrance. "Oh, I feel all 4 auspicious beasts coming from his godly essence," the Grand Priest spoke up.
Wow!
The Xenos cheered as he watched the shadows of 4 sacred beasts dance around the lip of the cauldron. Without any warning, a bright light exploded from the top of Kibo's palm. The golden pill fire swayed like a violent star and lit up the celestial hall. Zeno and many of the gods were awed by the energy that was being funneled into the cauldron. Suddenly, Kibo waved his hands, making 10 more godly herbs appear from his inner world before they were all thrown into the alchemical mixture. Starlight dew grass, 4 seasons sage, roots from a beating heart oak tree, a leaf from the world tree, 2-million-year-old snow-capped ginseng, yin essence flower, yang sun drop seedlings, herb of enlightenment, heavenly Tao stalk, and ascending bamboo shoot. All of the herbs were treasures that gods would kill to obtain. Just eating them would improve their powers by leaps and bounds. Yet, here they were, Kibo was using them for ingredients to make a pill that could tempt the gods of destruction themselves. The medicinal scent wafted from the top of the 7-legged cauldron and invaded the nostrils of all those present. Everyone in the vicinity began to feel a sense of euphoric and tranquilizing serenity. The fires danced as the ingredients were refined and melted down to a soft, viscous liquid. Suddenly, Kibo raised his hand and slammed on the side of his cauldron. The impurities inside the medicine spilled off to the side and into a vial before disappearing into his inner world. Kibo used a time and space array to speed up the flow of time surrounding the cauldron, and his body, strange and mysterious glyphs imbued with the laws of space and time, appeared beneath his feet before he continued to melt and remove impurities for almost 10 hours. Outside of his space-time array, it only took 10 minutes until the materials started to glow inside the cauldron, while on the inside hours had passed. With a final slap, Kibo gathered the medicinal herbs into a single, highly condensed point, before increasing the heat of the flames. The celestial hall felt like they were in the middle of an arid desert that was growing drier by the second. Suddenly the flames turned golden as he released his pill fire, the 9 true yang pill fire.